So thank you everyone for being here tonight. It's Tuesday, it's January 14th, 2025, our first Zoning Board of Appeals hearing in the new year. Everyone is here tonight. Carol Zacharias joining us remotely. Let's get right into it. Alex, it looks like case 3180 has requested an adjournment.
Yes, they have asked for an adjournment to the February 27th meeting.
Okay. Is this their last opportunity to ask for an adjournment before we have to bring them back in?
It's up to the board. I'm not sure how many adjournment requests this has been in conformance with the board's adjournment policy.
Okay.
So you can let me know if you'd like them to provide more information or if you'd like them to appear at the next meeting. I understand there's some surveying things that they're trying to get that have been outstanding.
Okay.
But I know it's been some time since they've been heard.
Okay. Well, you and I will connect then on the procedural rules.
Okay, great.
But I will move to accept the adjournment request.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Next case, 3179, 20 Hillcrest Avenue. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Good evening. A cold evening.
Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, at our last hearing, we just barely had a quorum. And we were going to vote on your case. The way it seemed the vote was going to lay out, it was going to result in in the application being denied automatically, which I didn't think was great. So here we are now. We have a full complement of the board, and you'll get a full 5 votes.
I'm surprised that you assessed it as being a negative vote because my impression from the 3 people who were at the meeting, including yourself,
Yes.
was that there was agreement and that it was viewed favorably. I had all the comments, including your own, were complimentary.
Right.
And,
I think it was going to come down to be a 2-1 vote, and so that would have automatically meant a denial because you still need the majority to rule in your favor. So you already essentially had 2 votes, from the absent folks that didn't help you, and then the 1 no vote. Am I remembering that correctly?
It was, I think, in that regard, 2-1 in that range, but that doesn't mean anything. You need 3 votes in one direction
Yes.
to make a determination. So if you only had 2, it would have been a non-vote.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, though, that my impression leaving the meeting was that I had 3 votes. I had the 3, members who were here for the meeting. I believe you were present. I believe Ms. Munn was here, and I also believe that Ms. Zacharias was here.
I understand. Nevertheless, we have all 5 members now, and I would like to, unless you have any new information to share with us, I would like for us to take the time to deliberate and try to reach a decision on this.
Can you put up the final plan?
Can you put up
I
the final
wasn't here
plan?
last time, so if you could put up the final plan.
Yes, certainly.
You know, you changed the
You
dimensions
moved
of the garage and you
and the
moved
pool
it. And the
setback.
pool, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you did everything right.
We've done a couple of things. At the board's request, we had reduced the size of the garage by about 32%. It had been 520 square feet. We reduced it to 360 square feet. We were able to reduce then the amount of the structure facing Miller Road, and we had simplified the design with a single door. It was so.
Bill, do you mind rotating those drawings
Oh,
180 degrees?
Turn them this way. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Right. All right. Yeah. I'm living in the past. Previously, you had to have them.
The
Yeah,
lower
yeah.
left one is the elevation from the street.
Yeah, here you go. Here's the street elevation.
Okay, so that's the garage, much more elegant,
So if you remember,
but it's still 2 garage doors facing
the street.
The other street, not Hillcrest.
Well, I mean, it's drawn as a barn-style door. In reality, it would be a lift-up door, you know, for a single width of a car. So it's only a one bay.
It's not two cars in there.
Right.
Right. You know, we still will have the parking complement that we need on the site because the plan is to have a pull-off parking place off of Hillcrest. And then we would have the single car in the garage here plus two more because we could park one behind the parked car in the garage and a car adjacent to that. So we're required to have four parking places to satisfy the code, so we would meet that.
Carol, do you have any final questions for Bill?
I honestly don't. I'm familiar with it. I remember it clearly.
Okay. Okay, then Carol, I'll ask for you to kick off the deliberation for us. What are your thoughts?
I'm really torn on this one, I'm going to be honest with you, because I think it's a vast improvement over what's in the neighborhood now, point number one. Point number two, it is, it's a property that is next to a business, right, contiguous to them, and across the street from a business. So this is a tough road to hoe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to build a lovely home with a lovely facade and so on and so forth. The problem, of course, is the garage facing the street and the significant rise of that garage vis-a-vis the adjacent neighbor who's a resident on the other side. So there are pros and cons. So I'm ruminating.
Okay.
When you say the rise, you mean the height of the building itself?
Yeah. In other words, the next door neighbor's looking at the side of a garage.
Well, yeah, let me point out that
Can't avoid it,
the
because we
village
know.
code, right. The village code limits the height of accessory structures to 16 feet, which the height of this is measured from the Miller Road side. So, and also, the building has a hipped roof. So
Right.
from each side, you know, if you're viewed from each side of the building, that roof is receding from your view. So that also reduces the visual impact of the building because the vertical wall.
I'm with you. I think you guys have done a great job of taking a property in a pretty tough location, surrounded by businesses and a major road, and you made it pretty doggone nice. So I congratulate you for that. I do.
Thank you. Have you any other questions for me?
No, I don't. I'll turn it over to the others.
Linda, how about you?
I agree with Carol
Okay.
and her assessment. I think the improvements are exactly what we asked for.
Thank you.
Yeah, the improvements are very nice, but I would note that if it weren't for the characteristics of the neighborhood, putting a garage door facing the street would not be in keeping with most neighborhoods. Given that you have a business to the east of you and to the south of you, I have to decide whether that's sufficient mitigation.
Well, let me point out
That's
that
exactly where I'm from as well.
yes, throughout the Hillcrest and Mill Road neighborhood, there are many homes that have attached garages with front-facing doors. In fact, immediately to the west of the landscaping business on the south side of Miller Road, there's a home with a very large front-facing two-car garage and an even larger parking area in the front where there's many as 6 cars parked many times. But also throughout the neighborhood, both neighborhoods, because of the size of these old file map lots, the homes have been unable to have other than attached garages in most cases. This property and 9 others in the entire neighborhood, which constitutes about 60-some homes, are are possible to have are through lots. So those 10 properties are the ones that would be subject to any type of a review by you for accessory structures, whether they're pool houses, pools, garages, gazebos, whatever they would be. So, and we've also done an assessment, and that some of those lots are configured in such a way that they wouldn't actually be able to develop themselves, be developed with two accessory structures, unlike this one can. Only 7 of the 10 could potentially have that, and only 3 of those face Miller Road, and the others face Hillcrest. So, if there were other similar development, it really wouldn't be a significant impact on the neighborhood. Also, I might point out that we've canvassed the neighborhood and have filed with you a list of 13 homeowners who have written letters of actual support. And also, we had attempted to have a petition to the local trustees to change the zoning code to allow this without a review. And in that case, we had 21 signatures on the petitions, and that's also in your file. So the reason I'm pointing that out is that there is support, and within the neighborhood, in a positive direction for this, so it would seem to me that an argument that it would be significant and a negative change to the neighborhood is really kind of outweighed by the evidence that we have presented and included in our file.
Alex, can you remind me, what's the maximum allowed height for an accessory structure?
It is 16 feet.
16 feet. Okay. Joyce, what do you think?
How tall? This is 16
16
feet.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of come down the same way as Tom does, is that I feel like you've made some significant progress, but I still have some reservations about a garage facing the road, even though it's given the business district, just in terms of setting a precedent for what this board does.
Let me point out something else about the village. This property is on a 7.5 lot, and that's what this particular area is zoned in. It's a small neighborhood, but there are other areas, other zoning districts within the village with many of that size lot, and few of them have 2 front yards, as this one does. And almost all of those lots are large enough and in that 7.5 limitation to have both a garage and a pool. And many of them do. In fact, I did 3 adjacent homes on Halsey Avenue that were configured exactly that way. Also, I would like to point out that in any neighborhood, on any block, you're going to have 4 properties that have 2 front yards, a front and a side yard. And in many of those lots throughout that district, the 7.5 district of the town, there are road-facing or street-facing garages that are often entered from whatever is not what you might say, the front of the house, the address side of the house. So it's not uncommon to have front-facing garages in a 7.5 zoning district. It's just that it so happens that their front yard is what we would call a side yard, and in this particular case, it's a rear yard. Also, there are other districts zoned with different zoning throughout which I've submitted as evidence in the file, where there are, have been many variances granted over the years through lots. for accessory structures. So it's not as if you're breaking new ground in as far as the way that historically these type of lots have been viewed by the village.
Understood. I think first and foremost that your patience and your adaptability here is to be complimented. I agree with everyone that the proposed garage is very pretty. I really do like the details that you've incorporated, and every version of the garage has been just great architecture to me. I absolutely would vote affirmatively for the swimming pool, but for me, I'm actually a no vote on the garage, and here's why. I do think the application is significant. I think if we look at the width of the structure in relation to the lot width, we're at too high of a percentage of the lot width. So street frontage, what we experience on the street is a bit, to me, on the heavy side. The design of the garage, while I really love it, the hipped character and very shallow roof slope does give you more wall face, which I also find significant. And I don't know if the benefit to the applicant is greater than the detriment to the neighborhood in that regard.
You don't know or you don't believe?
What's that?
You don't know as in you don't know, or you don't know as in you don't believe that that's the case?
I think that I do not think that the benefit to the applicant outweighs the detriment to the neighborhood. I think that while it's a very sympathetic application, for me personally, and I don't know if it's this unanimous decision, but for me personally, it would be a no on the garage.
Well, you mentioned, it being what you call significant.
Yes.
I don't know whether what you're referring to there is the portion of the test that is substantial, and because I don't think significant is the same as substantial, but you seem to call out percentages of the front portion facing of the garage, which is 18 feet, and it would be that percentage of 50 feet, which is the width of the lot at on that particular frontage. So
right. So let's do the math on that real quick. So 18 feet divided by 50 feet. So we're talking about 36% of your lot would now be taken up by a garage. And if we think of most lots and what most garage widths are, I don't think they rise to the level of 36%.
Well, let's take a look at most lots and what they have on it as far as structures go facing the street. So if you have a 150 foot lot, and it's not uncommon to have 80, 90 foot wide buildings on it in this particular village.
Of course
I mean,
not.
I think very commonly you're going to find that 36% of the frontage on a lot, more than 36% of it.
I agree with everything that you've just said.
With structures and with tall structures, this structure is it's the vertical facade of the building, is something on the order of about 10 feet. So
I agree that most lots probably have a significant portion taken up by structures, but you are asking us now to compare apples to oranges because those are homes, right? And here we're talking about a garage that by code isn't allowed to be there in the first place. So you're asking for relief from the zoning code, and if we weigh the balancing, me only, not speaking for my board members, me only, I don't think the application on balance meets the criteria for a variance.
So you say it's not, by code, not allowed there to be in the first place. I believe that the reason that this was written into the code as requiring a variance is because of the uniqueness of the fact that, that lots would be through lots. And I think that was meant to simply, be able to weigh the significance, as your word, to the character of the neighborhood. As I pointed out, the potential for this being repeated in the neighborhood is very small. And let's say that it was the only lot in this area that had this situation. In that case, there would be its significance or impact or whatever would be de minimis. The fact that only potentially three other lots on Miller Road would be developed similarly, also to me, with the number of homes in that neighborhood.
Well, consideration for the potential is not actually something we're considering.
So, I mean, well, yeah, but you're saying it will have a negative impact on the neighborhood. You're
Yes.
saying that the impact to the public outweighs the benefit to the property owner. To me, you're taking away some of the value of this property owner's property. Other properties in the village that are in the.
I just want to stop, just going to pause you right there. We in no way add or take away value from anybody's property. This homeowner bought this property knowing his restrictions fully, right? So
Yes,
we
knowing his
do not.
restrictions fully, and also being aware that there was a potential for it to be used in this way, if he made an argument that was a good argument. And what I'm trying to do is present an argument that says that other similarly sized lots, it's in the 72.5 district, are developed with these type of amenities. And so it's for him to be treated differently from other property owners who have similar sized lots. In fact, his lot is a little larger. It's 10,000 square feet, so it's an oversized lot for the zoning in itself. So he has I think the right as a resident of the village to expect to be able to enjoy his property to the same level as other similarly sized properties in the village.
And within the limits of the law, he absolutely does. But for now, I'll move to close this case for all purposes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Brian, you can prepare a decision that we'll vote on next month?
Based on what I've heard, based on the comments that the board members made during the hearing tonight, yes.
Okay, great.
All
Thank you,
right,
Bill.
I'm very sorry that this has come to this, and I also.
I mean, I think you may have an approval here.
All right, well, I'm hoping so, because, it's been a long road for my client. And,
Of course.
He's been through some emotional ups and downs about this, and he's a good resident of the village, and wants to do right
I get
by
it.
his neighborhood and by his neighbors.
And we'll vote next month, and maybe it'll be 4-1.
But as Luke said, this is self-created. He knew what the zoning code was when he purchased the property.
Yeah, I understand that, but, I mean, that's the case for anybody who comes in for a variance. And, each time you hear a case for a variance, people try to make a good argument, as to why there is a benefit to them, and also to try to convince you that you're not making a significant amount of harm to their neighbors.
Bill, you've been patient and an honest broker here all throughout the process, and I appreciate it. I know the board appreciates it. So we'll have a decision next month, and we will we'll talk about it. It's not just gonna be a simple vote. We're gonna discuss amongst ourselves. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the next case then is 3185, which is 199 Halsey Neck Lane.
Okay, I'm recused on that. So
Okay, thanks, Tom.
that's like one away from my house.
Understood. Alex, this says this application is being renoticed.
Yes, I believe it was renoticed for this meeting.
Okay, so we're good to proceed.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, it was renoticed for the November meeting, I believe.
super. Let's go.
Where is it on the agenda?
Yeah, I don't have it on my agenda.
Number 3 on old cases. Oh, that's.
Um,
Are you on an
You
old
should make
agenda?
sure that your agenda says version 3 in the bottom left-hand corner. There was some updates.
Version one.
Version one.
All right, I have an old version, sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no, I've got it here. I
Does
think.
everybody have version 3?
Wait,
That's
do you have
worked out.
version 3? I've got another copy over here.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir, your name for the record
Oh, my
first.
name is Joe Deppie, I'm the architect for the property. And I was here in November and I spoke to 3 of you.
Yes.
And anyway, I'm back. And I don't know what, if you want me to go through the whole presentation again, or?
Well, Joe, I think this sort of situation was the same as the previous application in that I really wanted a full complement of the board
Mhm.
to deliberate and close down. So I think that if there's nothing new from the last hearing, maybe just a very high-level refresher for some of the folks that were joining remotely in November.
So basically, my client wants a 2-car garage. Right now,
Mhm.
he has a 1-car garage. So we're proposing 270 square feet of additional space. That's going to require 3 variances, 1 for side yard, 1 for total yard, and 1 for gross floor area. The gross floor area, when he built the house, was conforming, and then it changed in 2018.
Right.
And back at the time when that provision went into effect, it was in the paper that the reasoning for that provision was to keep larger houses from overshadowing smaller neighboring houses. And I just want to say that in this particular case, that's not going to happen because this is one of the smaller houses in the neighborhood. So, and then the other thing is that we're adding about 11 feet to the width of the house and making the house 93 feet wide on the property. I went on Google Earth and just measured all the houses on the street, very roughly, but the average on the street is 109 feet wide. So it's not quite as wide as the average of all the houses on the street. So it's not going to have a lot of impact.
And sorry, go ahead.
So
continue.
and then, right now, it's a small, little hip roofed, looks like a little attachment to the house. I'm trying to make it blend in better with the house, with a gable roof, with corbels, and similar detailing to what's there now. And we're not adding living space, it's just for a car, so we're not going to be imposing on the neighborhood. It's not going to be detrimental to the neighborhood in any way. It's very well landscaped property. You really can't even see it. So I don't see how it's going to be a detriment. The other thing is the neighbor, where we're asking for the side yard relief, that neighbor has buildings right up against the property line as well. And I have a picture from the GIS, Southampton Town. Let's see if I can find it, okay. So this is my client's property right here, and the house to the north is here, and then he's got 2 structures right up against the property line.
The aerial photograph that you're referring to now, has that been submitted to the board?
I believe so. If not, I'll submit it. I think it has
Is there a
been.
way to get it a little blown up and in the center, maybe? Yeah. Yeah.
So the one side of the property where there is any impact, the neighbor already is right up against that property line. So I don't see that as a problem. And then on the other side, the total side yard setback doesn't change on that side, so the setback that was there just remains there. So we're not having any impact on the neighbor to the south. So anyway, that's basically.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's my recollection of it all. Carol, Joyce, Linda, some of you were here, some of you were not. Do you have any questions you want to ask Joe?
No, I don't think so at this point. It looks pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of their request.
The question I have is, if, let's say, this wasn't approved, does he have a right to build a separate garage on the property? A detached garage?
I think he does. Well, look, let's look at it this way. He does, but the garage that's there now would have to stay garage, right? He couldn't change that to living space because
Or
then
just
he
take
would
it
be
down.
over his.
But we'd be over the gross floor area with the detached garage as well. So we'd still need variances.
A detached garage would normally not count towards gross floor area.
Right.
However, you don't get that exemption where you have an attached garage. So they couldn't, in this case, add a detached garage because it would count towards gross floor area and put them over the limit.
Carol, what do you think?
I'm torn because I think it is unreasonably close to the neighboring property, putting aside the fact that the neighbors already encroached with these other buildings. But it's just so up against the neighboring property is one concern. The second concern is, once again, we're moving into the zone of 2 garages facing streets in the village, which is something that is best avoided. On the other hand, I think the architectural design is beautiful. The house is not imposing. The house is not outsized to the neighborhood. The result would not be, demonic to the neighborhood by any stretch of the imagination. So I understand the request. I sympathize with the request, and I'm trying to reconcile this 2-car garage facing front kind of concept that we'll keep wrestling with.
So I think that if the proposal were for a GFA request for livable space, it would be a pretty easy no, right? Because I don't think this board has ever granted that request. Complicating factor is that it's for non-habitable space. Complicating factor, Alex, fact check me, is that 2 years ago, the homeowner would have been under a different set of rules with respect to garages and gross floor area.
Yes, but when the house was built, it was conforming.
When the
Later
house was built,
rendered
it was.
non-conforming by changes to the code.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to changes in the way that attached and detached garages are counted towards gross floor area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, for me, I do think that the expansion of GFA does present a detriment to the village on a whole that outweighs the benefit to the client here. I do think it is a substantial request. Unless anyone has anything else they want to add, let's close this for all purposes. Carol?
Oh, you mean voting on it now?
No, we're not voting on it. I'm just asking, do you have any last items to
No.
add? Okay.
No, not other than what I've already said, which is it's beautifully designed, but what you've just said is the concern. Yes, we have concerns. I share the concerns.
Okay. So I'll move to close the application for written decision.
Seconded.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Brian, do you feel like you have enough to go on to? No.
No, I don't.
Okay. So let's talk. Let's let's do a straw vote then. Who wants to go first? Linda?
Are we voting yay or nay?
Yeah, yes to approve. And this is not binding. This is just for Brian to craft a written decision.
I'm still a little unclear if the client decides he needs a two-car garage. and
Yes.
decides to knock down the attached single, can he build a two-car separate structure on his property?
I mean, that would be fairly significant intervention into the home.
Not by the design I've seen.
Well,
You
if we
could
look
easily
at,
knock down that. What I'm trying to weigh is
Mhm.
if the board denies it,
Mhm.
do they have the right to build a separate structure on the property that wouldn't count to the gross square footage?
You know the numbers a little bit better than us, Alex. If we lost this 400 square feet or so that's being taken up by garage, could there be a detached two-story garage?
So there, currently on the property, there's only an attached garage for one car,
One car
And-
attached.
and there's no detached garage.
No.
So the GFA exemption that is being applied currently to the attached garage. So there is no GFA exemption to a detached
No, but if
garage.
they took that garage off, they took the attached,
Mhm.
just took it off,
Yes.
giving much more space between the house and the property
Mhm.
line, could they then build a detached garage?
I believe that would be permissible because 100% up to a certain limit of a detached garage would not count. But the attached garage would have to be removed. It couldn't be converted to living space.
Right.
Well,
because
no,
that
I
would-
understand that.
All right, so then what we've just established is that there are feasible alternatives.
Well, it's not feasible because that'd be very expensive to do. First, there's a lot of construction, demolition, construction, redesign of the house. Can't just take the garage away because there's habitable space behind it. And then the additional cost of doing the driveway all the way into the backyard where the only spot, there's no room alongside the house because the side yard setbacks are too great to put the garage anywhere except in the very backyard behind the pool.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be big disruption of, the property and very high construction costs.
Just note that the hearing's been closed.
Right.
Yep, so,
Okay. Joyce, how would you vote?
I'm a little bit torn. I will have to say that I do have reservations about the increase in the GFA, but I think also, more importantly, the proposal of building a two-car garage that's facing the street, I have an issue with still.
It would have to be in the backyard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you would maybe approve.
Correct.
Linda?
Approve.
Okay. Did we lose Carol?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, yeah, no. I have significant concerns about the GFA, and I'm really concerned about the two-car garage facing the street. I know we have a one, but two doubles down. Having said that, given other circumstances, I'd probably vote to approve if I had to vote right now.
Okay. Then Brian, you have 3 in favor.
I will draft a proposed decision for the board.
Okay. Thank you very much.
okay, great,
Thanks,
thank
Joe.
you. Thank you.
Okay, new cases. Tom, welcome back. 3186, 39 Moses Lane.
Good evening, for the applicant. John Bennett.
John, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Happy New Year, everyone.
You too.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
This was previously posted. So the affidavits were submitted previously. And we got a confirmation of that from Marcella. So we're here to ask the board to amend a condition that was imposed on a prior variance granted by the board, and that condition, there was language put into the covenant which allows a modification, thus allows us to come back and ask you amend and in effect remove that condition. This is a case about changed circumstances, which I'll confidently be able to explain and demonstrate to you that there are significantly changed circumstances which warrant a relook at this condition and in my opinion, a removal of the condition. Let me tell you what this case is not about. There's no request for variances here. The proposal conforms totally with all setback requirements, GFA requirements, height restrictions, pyramid law restrictions. It conforms to the current code. And what we're talking about is a change in circumstances because the covenant grew out of a code that was vastly different than what you have before you now. And this whole concept of a change in circumstances is giving rise to a change in law. I put some modern cases in my correspondence, but you're gonna really have to be patient with me because I have to cite. I was fortunate enough to be taught securities law by a great gentleman, a guy by the name of Norman Poser, who was my professor. And in addition to having worked for the SEC, being a lawyer for the SEC and the American Stock Exchange, everyone, hopefully some people remember there was an American Stock Exchange. He wrote a book about Lord Mansfield, who was the High Chancellor of England in the 18th century. And this passage always took me in terms of how you're supposed to change and adapt based upon and be aware of changing circumstances. And the quote is about, he was dealing with what may seem obvious these days, but this is England in the 18th century. The quote relates to the ability of a case of a married woman being able to be sued separately. And he changed that rule, and he said, general rules are, this is Lord Mansfield, varied by change in circumstances. Cases arise within the letter, yet not within the reason of the rule, and exceptions are introduced which, grafted upon the rule, form a system of law. Syntax and structure of the sentence, obviously from the 18th century, but the whole idea is that when the reason for the imposition of the rule has left, then you modify the rules. And again, we put more modern cases in our submissions, but suffice to say that this is a situation that is ripe for a re-examination of this circumstance and a removal of that condition. So in 1998, a predecessor in title sought to subdivide a parcel that was improved by two pre-existing non-conforming residences because they had certain issues to them. But the grant of the lot area variance contained a condition prohibiting the expansion of the existing residence. It said you can't expand it anymore. I have my own thoughts about the validity of that condition because it bound the building inspector. And depending upon how the board feels this evening, I may ask to submit that case law, which I concentrated on a little bit too late to get it to you, so I don't want to surprise either you or your counsel, but it may or may not be necessary based upon what happens and what your input and your response is this evening. The Cordals purchased the property in 2024. There's no restriction on the certificate of occupancy, nor the updated certificate of occupancy obtained by the applicants prior to their purchase. The CO doesn't say anything at all about limiting what can be done on the property. And Mrs. Cordal is going to testify tonight about their representation suffice to say, the Cordals Council, when they purchased the property, did what is common for lawyers to do. There was a line in the contract that said, subject to covenants and restrictions of record so long as they are not violated. And I'm patting myself a little bit on the back, but I never have anyone sign a contract before I have the title report and I look at the covenants. That's my practice. 85% of the lawyers don't do that. They actually say, they take this language in the contract that says, covenants, restrictions, so long as they're not violated. And it's not that common, but this, in a case like this, it'll come up and bite you in the behind, because the covenant is not violated, but there's a covenant that prohibits the expansion of this house, even though when the Cordals, and they'll testify to this, examined the house for purchase, they were under the impression that they could expand it by about 600 plus or minus feet, and that's what we're trying to do right now. The current property owner's architect applied for approval to construct a second floor, completely within the footprint of the existing residence. And by the way, I should have said, in addition to the Cordals, I think Charles Kuhn, the architect, is with us on Zoom, hopefully, if there are any questions arise. But I do have his plans, and I've reviewed them as well. But, so the proposal, which is before you, is to enlarge only the second floor of the residence. And leaving aside what expansion means, we'd like to remove the restriction that was previously placed on the property. There's an existing second floor. The existing second floor, you can see on A1, is 465 square feet. We'd like to expand over the house within the footprint to end up, to end up with a total second floor of 1,095 square feet, which is a 630 foot square foot addition. So again, the existing second floor is 465 square feet in size. The applicant proposed to construct a second floor of a total of 10,095, a total increase of 630 square feet. And that's on A1 and A2. Candidly, I don't know where the number in the posting came from. It's 800 and change. I was sort of scratching my head on that because we looked at it. We're only asking for, when you remove the, if you remove the restriction, the 630 square foot addition is within just a little bit of the GFA. And we're not asking for a GFA variance, but that's where we're at. We're at 630 square feet. Again, going over the existing second floor of the, going over the existing footprint of the house. An existing second floor of 465, want to add 630. Over the footprint, and again, all in conformance with setback, pyramid, GFA, everything. The volume of the second floor, both proposed and existing, will be a bit higher, because right now, the existing second floor of the house is about 8.4 from the second floor to the ridge height, and the ceiling heights are only in the middle. They're about 7 feet. That's in the middle. The proposed second floor to the ridge will be, from the second floor to the ridge will be 15 feet, but still in conformance with the pyramid. That'll give us ceiling heights of 8 feet. So it's not a greedy ask. It's an 8-foot request, and actually that'll bring it in to conformance with the building code, because only the middle of it is at that 7 feet. The house itself is only 26.9 proposed. It's 26 feet 9 inches in height. Getting back a little bit to the narrative, after the Cordals purchased it and looked at this property unaware of the restriction, and when I say unaware of the restriction, I'm being very, very candid with you. As a lawyer, there's no hiding from the fact that they had, by reason of the filing of the covenant, constructive notice of the restriction. There's no question about that. But I want you to hear the way it happened, and I want the Cordals to talk to you about it, just so that you will be comfortable with their bona fides and their good faith. And I would hope that the misstep of their prior counsel would not be visited on them, particularly where this is an application that will do absolutely have no impact whatsoever on the neighborhood, and was based upon and I'm going to get to this right now.
Okay.
Based upon thinking, based upon the laws as they were in place at the time. At the time of the 1998 decision, residential development in the village was regulated by means of lot coverage restrictions. That's all there was. There were lot coverage restrictions in terms of how big the house could be. Setbacks, but mostly what was governing how big a house could be were the lot coverage restrictions. Gross floor areas had not hadn't been enacted by the village trustees. And this is getting to what I represent to you as a textbook change in conditions, circumstances. So you had no gross floor area restrictions at the time of the imposition of the condition. The no pyramid restrictions, no varied height restrictions based upon the size of lots. All of the stuff that took place over the course of the last 15 years or so through a lot of like blood and feathers and political wrangling.
John, 1989 or 98?
At the time of the 1989 decision. Well, what is it? Let me see. I might be in this.
Here it says 1998.
Yeah, it's 98.
98.
Yeah, no, that's.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 98.
Okay.
Yeah, but you didn't have any of the GFA restrictions. You didn't have any of the pyramid restrictions. You didn't have any of that stuff. So what the board was looking at the time was the fear that the property owner could construct a 2.5-story, 35-foot house. They could wipe everything away. They could have constructed a 2.5-story, 35-foot high house that covered 20% of the lot. And you'll see the discussion in the decision, which led to the condition, which talks about the fear of the size of the house based solely on the limitation of the lot area. At the time, we've calculated the property owner could have utilized all of his lot coverage allowances for the residents, could have constructed a home with a gross floor area of 7,058 square feet as of right. I think we're just under 3,000. The house could have been 2.5 stories, 35 feet in height, and didn't have to conform to any pyramid restrictions. That's the change in circumstances. That's why the board was concerned about not further restricting, the potential growth. So again, since the adoption of the 98 decision, the village has studied the gross floor area requirements, enacted provisions within the village to specifically restrict the size of these homes. So the prior board sought to prevent overdevelopment of this parcel. The Board of Trustees has undertaken significant studies, amended the village code to address every single one of these concerns. And that is a significant change of circumstances, and we gave you the case law. When there's a law change, that much of a significant change of the law, that's a change of circumstances that lets us come back to you. A change in the law applicable to a parcel of real property is a significant change in circumstances, so as to indicate proper reconsideration of the variance request. That's a quote from one of the cases that I gave you. In addition to the significant changes that have been made to the village code since the 1998 decision, the neighborhood has changed. And we did a very thorough, if I may, job of demonstrating that to you by correspondence dated January 7th, 2025. And I'm just going to highlight some of the concerns there. I'm not going to read the letter to you, and it's very exhaustive. So again, we want to get rid of this condition, but that would only allow us to increase this house by about 630 square feet. The home will be 2,906 square feet in size, which is not at all inconsistent with the development of the surrounding properties. Again, no relief whatsoever. The majority of the surrounding properties are improved by residences that do not comply with the current GFA. So this property, in effect, is based on an outdated set of zoning codes is being held to a higher standard than the neighborhoods. Indeed, most of them don't comply with the current gross floor area restrictions. So just a couple of examples, which are all, we got the surveys, analyzed the square footage, the size of the house, and which are all annexed as exhibits to my January 7th letter. 70 Moses Lane, shown as property F, on a lot that's 1,400 square foot smaller than the subject parcel, is improved by a residence of 3,477 square feet. It's about 500 square feet larger than what's being proposed here, all, and again, in conformance with zoning. 705 square feet larger. The property to the immediate west of the property, located at 46 Harvest, a 2-story residence has a gross floor area of 3,851. That home is about 400 square feet larger. Again, the applicant is proposing to expand the existing home only on the second floor within the footprint and all in conformity with zoning. The property to the immediate north, 45 Moses, which is property H, is a larger lot, but it's improved by a principal residence and a detached guest house. The combined structures are 1,600 square foot larger than permitted under the current GFA requirements. So these are significant changes that have been made to the village code, and the demonstration has been made that the home, as expanded, will not impact the character of the neighborhood. There may be people here to speak tonight, but I looked at the file, I didn't see any letters, but that doesn't mean people may be here to speak tonight one way or the other, and of course, you'll ask for that. Based upon your comments, if you're comfortable with removing this restriction, I would ask that you take a straw vote and close it after you hear everyone's comments and hear my clients. And I just want to thank you for reopening for reconsidering this. But if you're on the fence or something like that, I could submit more authority. I didn't want to do that without the appropriate amount of time for you to consider that. But I know Mrs. Cordell wants to talk to you a little bit about how the situation arose, how she came to buy the house, her experience in the village of Southampton. Would you mind?
Sure.
actually-
But just
Yeah.
two
Oh,
seconds.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Alex, two questions to you. Do you agree with John's assertion that if this existing decision weren't on the books, this house would be built as of right?
Yes, I believe that's correct. Otherwise, the building inspector would have had to include additional
Okay.
variances necessary
Okay.
on the denial sheet.
John touched on a slight square footage discrepancy. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so the 893 square feet comes from the denial letter that was signed by the building inspector on June 27th. And it looks like that number was taken from the page ST1 of the plot plan prepared by the architect, where it says breakdown of floor area additions. And that's just the difference between the existing and the proposed floor area for the second floor.
SC1, Alex?
ST-1.
Oh, ST1.
Yeah, and the top left it says breakdown of floor area additions.
Yeah.
That number doesn't appear on there, but it's the difference between the existing and proposed.
Well, I mean, all I can, the number that we're asking for, which is 630 square feet, is about 3 feet less than the allowed GFA. So the request was
Doesn't
for
matter,
more.
right.
So we're.
I
I don't
understand.
see
It's
it as
academic.
any harm, any foul.
Okay. Can you go back and talk a little bit more about the circumstances of that 1998
Sure.
zoning board
Sure,
case
sure.
and why that board saw fit to include this aspect to their decision?
I mean, that's the real heart of it. So yeah, thank you. Let me talk to you about that again. There were no GFA limitations. The only limitations was lot coverage. So if you're only limited by lot coverage and setbacks, which in the small zones were pretty minimal, you could build a very, very, very big house. And of
Right.
course, people got very, very concerned about that. So I guess getting out ahead of the trustees, this board talked about, here, I'll quote you from the language. If the requested variance is granted, lot 1 could contain an existing house and deck, and this is if they left everything, didn't take everything away, and the lot coverage may contain a relocated and reduced in size garage having a lot coverage of 169, so that the total lot coverage didn't exceed 20%. We analyzed it so that the property owner at the time, if he scraped the lot clean, under that code that was in existence at 1998, could have constructed a home with gross floor area of 7,058 square feet as of right, could have been 2.5 stories, 35 feet in height, and didn't have to conform to any pyramid restrictions because there were none at the time. So what the board was saying is if we just don't put any restrictions on this house, we're creating 2 new lots. You can build this huge house, and that house would be, in their opinion, out of character of the neighborhood because the building inspector, if they granted the variance without the condition, and somebody came in with a house of this size, the building inspector would have said, well, I'll send it to the ARB, but I can't downsize it. And that was the harm that they sought to prohibit. Now, the legislature, with a very, 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 very tight set of GFA restrictions, height restrictions, pyramid restrictions, all that stuff, has taken away the fear that the Zoning Board of Appeals, if I may, rightly felt at the time of the variance. And that's a significant change in circumstances because the whole village code has changed. The board couldn't say, well, okay, well, we create this lot, but, you know, they can only have a certain GFA, it can only be a certain height, it can only be, it's all this self-regulating limitations on the size of the house weren't there.
So it was a request for a subdivision.
Yes.
I'm assuming the two houses front to back and created your subject property.
Yeah,
with
one's
the
a flag,
lot,
yeah.
and the other property was the one that actually fronts
Right,
Moses.
exactly.
So this house was actually, it seems like it was already existing.
They both were existing.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that's why they said you can't expand it anymore. And when they say you can't expand it anymore, that contemplated somebody comes in,
Wait,
wipes everything.
both houses existed on one property
Yeah,
at that time?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's what we call in the trade a paper subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, because there are two existing homes anyway.
Were
So-
they ever owned by the same person?
I guess they must have been. If I may, I'm assuming that, but it's the only logical. The one applicant came in to pull them apart. So yeah.
okay,
it
so
must
the
have
applicant comes in to pull them apart
Right.
because they,
Well, they want two houses. Yeah.
they want to have more flexibility for accessory structures probably.
been. No,
and-
they probably want to be able to sell one house separately.
Yeah, and keep one, or, so flexibility,
I mean,
right?
I'm assuming 98. Why do you take a lot that has two houses on it and subdivide and go in and ask for the variances to have two separate lots so you can spin one off
Okay.
or maybe give one to your kid or whatever.
So this house was there at
Yep.
the time, as was the one on Moses.
Yes.
So they weren't exactly considering, they were saying, look, we'll grant your subdivision, we'll give you your flexibility now on your two smaller lots to have
That's
two
all.
swimming pools, to have two detached garages, what have you. But this house that's there can't be expanded.
Because if you read their rationale,
Yeah.
they start talking about the only limitations being lot area coverage.
Right, so
That's the sine qua non of the decision. That's the whole rationale for the decision. It's the in futuro fear of what could happen on the lot. That's the whole reason they imposed the variances. And when you take that fear away, the laws and conditions supporting the variance, the condition, disappear. Because the legislature has taken care of that. So it's a significant change in circumstances. And
Alex,
if I was trying to build something that was out of the character of the neighborhood,
yeah.
that'd be something else. But
Right.
here, that's why I did a neighborhood analysis. You've got all these houses in the area that are over the existing GFA. So I'm just saying, let me build to the existing GFA, the existing setbacks, the existing height limitations, the existing pyramid, all of that stuff.
Well, for me, it's been 27 years. That's enough time to have a conversation about
Yeah.
this, right? I just want to understand, as to the extent that we can, what the rationale was at the time and what were the circumstances. Now, Alex,
And
let
I
me-
don't think you can willy-nilly do this. I think you really have to have, that's why I'm giving you what I think is a very solid reason to make the change. You can't, when somebody comes in and asks to change a covenant, you have to say, why was that covenant imposed?
Yes.
I mean, that's your job. And you don't change it without a studied look at it. And I've tried to provide that studied look for you.
Alex, existing house on lot 2 shall not be enlarged or extended or increased in size.
Yep.
In order to blah, blah, blah. I don't know what in order to. But if I'm being lawyerly, I would say that I can demolish this house and then it's not existing anymore. And then I can come in with a application for an all-new house and bypass this.
That absolutely had occurred to me. I thought it was a little too cute by half. 'Cause we
Let's-
knew-
I'm helping you.
I
Helping
know
you,
you
so
are.
let me go.
I
Let me
know
go
you
on
are.
with
I
this.
know.
I suspect that the building inspector wouldn't allow that, but, you know, it would be, it'd have to be interpreted if somebody asked for that.
It would be tested.
Yeah.
The law is quite clear, and I litigated this issue in. Excuse me. I'm sorry. The law is quite clear, and I litigated this issue in a case in Shelter Island. These conditions, these covenants, these conditions are construed against the municipality. So, for example, I had a situation where the owners of the Rams Head Inn were using the parcel across the street for parking, for commercial parking. And the covenants that were on that subdivision, where the commercial parking was, the covenants were on that subdivision created all these limitations on how a house could be built. They had setback limitations, they had coverage limitations, they had all that. But guess what? The covenant never said you can only have a residential use there.
Right.
So we were able to demonstrate that that the covenant didn't prohibit the commercial use because it was construed against the drafter. They're construed very tightly. I appreciate what you're saying. I really, really struggled with that.
I think you have a strong case to say that the you choose the right words. You have a strong case to say that a denial would represent a undue hardship because they can knock the house down and get what they want anyway. I don't know. It just seems that this is a language that's open to interpretation. So,
well, the building inspector's original thought was, and the court can testify that there wasn't going to be a problem because there was a renovation. But I thought it was easier because I think I have such a clear case, to be very honest with you, to ask the board to remove the condition. I thought it was just an easier, less. You know, another one of my professors used to say, people say that's a technicality, and then he says, yeah, technicality, that's your winning argument. But I didn't necessarily want to go down that path because I just thought it was a clear case for removal of the condition. And I again, if the board wants more law on all of these conditions, I think the condition is actually an illegal condition. But
okay.
But I don't want to go there if the board is comfortable with removing it. I do want.
Brian, what's your take on that?
I have no idea. I have not seen certain documents that are
Okay,
necessary.
Don't put them on the spot.
Oh, we have time.
No, the
Brian
problem
has
is
time to study it.
I've not seen the decision. I've not seen the covenants. I don't believe they've been filed with the application.
I'll get you
so-
that.
Okay.
I'll get you that. Okay.
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 Well, yeah, because I mean
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
obviously a condition
Oh, I thought that
of
was the building
application.
department file. That was the whole reason for the denial. So,
Okay.
Brian, I'll get you that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from the homeowners.
If you would, thanks.
Can I ask a question before we go on?
Please do.
Oh, gosh, yes, sorry.
Alex, I don't know if this is relevant, so I'm curious to hear your answer. The question put by Luke was, if for some odd reason they went ahead and wanted to destroy the house to get around this covenant,
Mm-hmm.
you made a comment that the building inspector wouldn't approve that.
Well,
Why
I think what I said is the building inspector would have to make an interpretation about how to apply that
Word exists.
restriction if somebody were to ask for that. So it's hypothetical. It hasn't been tested. He may read the intent of this as to not allow any structure larger than the one that's existing. I don't know if he would.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Got
The word existing is problematic for someone trying to enforce this. Again, it was obvious to me, as the chairman pointed out, I thought that it wasn't necessary to raise that issue because I thought there's a clear case based upon the law for a mere removal of the covenant, and it was just easier, as opposed to getting into an interpretation argument.
Well, Carol, you're an attorney. What is your interpretation? Not having seen the full decision, of course.
I'd like to see the restriction in writing before I would give an opinion, is exactly what our counsel said, but in general, to me, existing means existing. And if the house doesn't exist, the bets are off.
Okay, let's go to the homeowners.
Yeah,
Come on up.
Oh, you can sit down.
Introduce yourself, please.
Sit down.
So I'll read from here. First of all, I want to thank you all so much for having
Introduce
this-
yourself first. Need your name.
Name's Ashley Cordell, and this is my husband, Matthew Cordell, behind me. First of all, I want to thank you so much for hearing this case and thank our lawyer for being so supportive in handling of our situation. I've been spending my summers in Southampton Village for over 40 years. These summers for me started when my family was renting a small cottage in the village, and just a few years later, they bought their first home on Moses Lane. Since then, they have owned 3 homes in Southampton Village, all of them a few blocks from each other. I love it here. And some of my happiest memories are not just in the Hamptons, but Southampton Village in particular. Of course, when I married and started having a family of my own, I brought them here. We've had some of my most treasured memories and started new family traditions together. You can imagine how delighted I was when they all loved Southampton Village as much as I do. My husband is a police officer, so when we started talking about where we wanted to retire, spend time, we both automatically said Southampton. It was after numerous years of searching that we were able to find a home literally down the block from my family's home. We hired a lovely lawyer for the closing, and though he was well-intentioned, he admitted he overlooked that this house carried with it a serious restrictive covenant. Unfortunately, we had already closed on the house when we were informed by our architect of the covenant. I should add that our architect approached the building department regarding the issue. The building department assured them that it was not an issue, and they would not seek to enforce the covenant. Our architect then proceeded with the project. It was in June, hours before our ARB meeting, we were informed that our application was denied. I can assure the board that without question, we would have never bought this house given our plans if we had known we had to go through this kind of time, expense, and worry that we've had to go through in trying to remove this covenant. I believe that everyone in this room understands that this process is costly. Time out of work, legal fees. We were not financially prepared to take on something of this nature. But here we are. We are not trying to build a mansion. We are trying to make simple improvements to the house that we could afford in order to make it more livable and comfortable for our family of 4. We hope that the board takes this all into consideration and chooses to decide in our favor and remove this covenant. We can assure the board that our improvements will be totally in keeping with the beauty and charm of this village and all of the laws that the village has appropriately enacted in order to assure that Southampton Village remain the gem that it is. Because the beauty of the village and the quality of life it offers its citizens is what will continue to draw people like us to want to live here, to raise our families here, and to retire here. Thank you for your time.
That's it. I mean, I don't have anything at this point, unless the board has any questions.
Do you have any questions for John?
No, I don't think so.
Any comments?
I just would, as you have asked for, to make sure that we have a look at the actual letter of the original code, so we, understand what impacts it would have in terms of removing this covenant. But I certainly understand that 1998 was a long time ago, and, with the current restrictions in place in the village in terms of the GFA and pyramid, the height and setbacks and things like that, I think that it's probably more a formality than anything else.
Did you want to, just so I give you exactly what you want, Joyce, you wanted to see the decision, the covenant, did you want to see the laws that were in existence at the time of the decision? Or I can represent that to the board.
I would like to see the facts of the case at the time.
Okay, that's in,
Yeah.
I'll get you the decision,
Yeah.
just get you the decision, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's also just a requirement of the
Yeah, of
application
course,
as well.
of course.
Okay.
I just assumed it was in the, foolish me, assumed it was in the turn down documents. It's
Okay.
part of the covenant, but
Yeah.
I'll get it to the board and the
Okay.
council, of course.
Okay.
Should be in the record.
Okay. Okay.
I think it actually helps my case, but.
Agreed. Okay. Tom?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Carol?
You're on
You
mute.
may be
Carol.
muted.
Agreed. Subject to review of the covenant to make sure that we're removing something that we think we're removing as described today and nothing else, nothing basic.
Yep.
Absolutely. This ship has sailed. The world has changed. The code's there. The regulations and restrictions are there to protect the community. I would let this one go and remove the covenant, subject to that.
Yeah, so some due diligence on our part. Okay. Brian?
Just so I'm clear, these changes, by adding to the second story, would comply with code today?
Height, GFA, setbacks, everything. If anything.
Pyramid?
Of course.
Okay.
No request for variance. If anything, and Luke, you know this better than I think if in the middle of the building, the existing second floor, you're at about 7 feet.
Yep.
But the rest is, I think, out of building code requirements. We'll make it an 8-foot ceiling. So, to the extent that that's something to throw in there, That's helpful too.
It appear, I mean, the documents suggest that it's underneath the pyramid.
I believe
Oh, no,
it's
it's underneath
noted,
the pyramid. I'm
it's
talking about this
noted at the
building
bottom
code.
of the denial letter that it conforms with the zoning and all other
Okay.
aspects.
Okay.
But just to make clear procedurally, the current application before us is just for the removal of the
That's it.
covenant.
That's
and
it.
okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Then they won't be back in front of us.
They're not gonna be
Right,
back, we're
right.
not gonna be back in front of you within 3 or 4 feet of the GFA limitations.
Okay.
Okay.
And I haven't seen, people may get mad at me when I say this, I'm sorry, this is the way I practice, I haven't seen, have you given any GFA relief? Ever?
No, I don't think we
I don't
have.
think you have.
Once
I've never
per
asked
dormer.
for it. I got
Yeah,
one.
a dormer.
I
A dormer.
got one. I got one since been practicing in front of this board since 1982. I got one lot coverage variance, and it was for Our Lady of the Hamptons School.
Okay.
So that was a special dispensation.
So I think it is on you to, I think it's on you to provide the decision.
Brian and to the
Brian.
board.
Submit it to the village.
I'll submit
Yep,
it
we'll
to
distribute
Alex,
it.
yeah.
All right, good. See if there's anyone else who wants to be heard.
Oh, sure. Are there any neighbors that want to speak on this application? And Sage, is there anyone in the Zoom that was raising their hand? No. Okay. Brian, what's the proper way to move on from this
Can I
tonight?
get it to you in writing, or do you want to keep it open for all purposes?
The problem is, without knowing what the document says, it's really hard to decide whether to close it and just keep it open for that. So
I agree.
I would
think we have
recommend
to keep
continuing.
it open for the next one. I really hope there's no surprises in the original decision.
Covenant is what it says.
Okay.
And decision is what
Okay.
it is, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're going to, I'm going to move to adjourn this until next month.
Okay, great.
Yeah, a
February
second.
27th.
The February 27th, yeah. Okay, all in
Yeah.
favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks for
Okay.
listening to me. and
Sure.
Thank you for letting me bore you with my reference to
Anytime,
the
John. All right, next case, 3187 98 Burnett Street. Who is here for that?
Did you see that? Did you see that, the property that we just discussed? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Sage he's joining virtually? Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Good, what's going on?
I am the architect for 98 Burnett Street,
Okay.
and I'm sorry that I can't be there, but I'd like to do it by Zoom, and if I could share my screen, I would do that. I'm not sure if I can do that. There. Is that okay with you?
Of course.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So let's move this out of the way. So I'm the architect for 98 Burnett Street for Stephanie Smith, and our proposal is to reconstruct a pre-existing non-conforming one-story garage that's located in the southwest corner of the property. It's currently a flat roof, concrete block structure, and it's located, as you can see here, just shy of 2 feet off of the south property line and about 2 feet off of the west property line as well. There also happens to be, as you can see on the survey, another garage right next door, and it's separated by this hedgerow that exists. So the drawings, these are the existing conditions up here. Like I said, it's a flat roof, it's got kind of a parapet wall, so that there is like a pitched roof inside that. But the flat roof is about 10'3" high. And our goal is to rebuild it and lower the plate height down to 8 feet, so that we're, not really increasing our pyramid all that much. But you can see this dotted line on these drawings shows you where the existing is, and create a pitched roof over this building. If you looked through the pictures, or if you were able to visit the site, you could see, the existing house is a hipped roof with dormers, a hipped front porch, shingle style. This is the existing garage currently. It needs to come down either way, whether it gets rebuilt with a pitched roof or not. It's not doing well. And if you look at it from Burnett Street, this is the garage that is adjacent to it on the other side of the hedge, that is also about 10 feet tall. And then just across the street is a 2-car garage that is built with a hipped roof, that wasn't built all that long ago. I believe they got some variances. I don't know if the garage got a variance or not. And then just
Lisa, hold on one second. What's the address of that property?
across the street,
Yes.
I don't know. It's right here. So I'm not sure if it has an address on Pine Street or on Burnett Street.
Alex, can you check
Obviously,
and see if they got
driveway's
a
on
variance
Burnett
for their garage?
I can
I'm
take a
not-
look, but I'm not sure that I would have access to all the records here.
Okay.
I would probably have to check within the building department.
Okay.
Records.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption, Lisa. Please go on.
No worries. So, this is an aerial of Burnett Street. You can see Burnett Street is a land of little one-story structures that are right on the property line, pretty much all up and down Burnett Street. So, obviously it's an existing garage that's located there. So I think in terms of, location, it's, again, pre-existing, non-conforming, and really it's just a matter of, let's see, I'm proposing to increase it by 23 cubic feet on the one side and 106 cubic feet on the other side, just by virtue of how close they are to the property lines. But again, the lowering, I think, of the plate height, if you were a neighbor, you're not going to have a 10-foot high wall. You're going to have a sloping roof that slopes away from you. So I kind of thought we were mitigating it. Everything else meets, the lot coverage meets, the green space meets, everything else meets code. It's just that this happens to be pre-existing non-conforming.
Alex, the proposed floor plan, it looks like storage, a bathroom, a desk, a sink, all legal?
Yes. So in accessory structures such as this, the building department does not allow heat,
Okay.
cooking facilities, or sleeping facilities.
Okay.
So it could be used for seasonal purposes,
Okay.
and for storage.
Okay. Okay. That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Who wants to start? Tom? What do you think?
So the garage would be pre-existing non-conforming, right?
Yes.
Correct.
But it's there, so.
Yeah, and the proposal, Lisa, is the same footprint?
Exact same footprint, exact same location.
So the only difference is the volume of the roof, because it's not flat.
Correct.
Yeah, that's where the cubic
Yeah.
volume is coming from. Linda, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think Tom just clarified my questions, actually.
Okay.
And just so that the board is aware, I did put into the file a letter from the neighbor to the west, the woman that owns the garage that is adjacent to this, and she put a letter into the record that says that she has looked at the plans and that they think it would be will fit in perfectly with the character of the neighborhood, just so you know.
Okay. What do you think, Joyce?
I think in general, it looks like an improvement, and I don't really have any issues with it.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that wants to be heard on this? Sage, anyone raising their hand? Okay. I think we could do a short form approval
Okay.
for this.
Second?
Second, okay. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. By the way, I'm the next one, so if you don't kick me out, that would be nice.
Okay, so you are 3188 275 Ox Pasture?
Yep.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Get rid of so Lisa Zaloga, the architect for 275 Ox Pasture Road. This is a variance to locate a swimming pool in a front yard, not a required front yard, just a front yard. So this is again, there's a conforming lot with a pretty large historic home that is situated in the northwest corner of the property. There's a pre-existing detached garage. There's also an attached garage in the house. The house is located, as you can see, right up against the back corner of this property. Has a very large hedge, has gates, and the way that the access comes in, the way that the front door is actually not on the front of the house, but it's on the side of the house, it really made it kind of difficult to figure out where a swimming pool might want to live. There is a conforming location off on the west side of the house. It's not great in terms of what it's adjacent to in the house. It's also would locate it right up against really, really high hedges and trees, so that it wouldn't really get any sun. And it would put it 35 feet off of the neighbor's property. Our proposal is to locate it on the south side of the house, but I've actually doubled the accessory setback. So as opposed to being 90 feet from the street, where I'm proposing it at 180 feet from the street. So I'm doubling the accessory setback. And it also allows me to pull it or push it away from the neighbor at 295 Ox Pasture Road. So instead of just having a swimming pool and assorted noise 35 feet off the property line, I was able to push it to the trellis would actually be 83 feet off the the swimming pool would be 83 feet off the property line, and the trellis would be 70 feet off the property line. So I doubled the accessory setback on the side as well. So I can show you the aerial photo here. You can see where the house and all of the structures are located off in this far corner of the property. There's no rear yard to even contemplate putting a swimming pool. The neighbor to the west has a swimming pool off here. And again, we were trying not to be close to them. We were trying to get further away from them, which I kind of was hoping that they would appreciate. We have a tennis court off in this corner with our neighbor, a swimming pool, tennis court behind us. And, I'm sure that you guys have driven by there. Nobody will ever see this swimming pool from anywhere except space. So we were hoping that, that the board might look favorably upon that.
Lisa, weren't you here on this property very recently?
No, I've never gotten a variance for this property. I did the addition of the garage way back when, and we're currently building building the tennis court right now, but it's never been in front of the
There was a
ZBA.
property west of here
Right.
on Ox Pasture a couple times ago.
Yes, I know that one. But Lisa, weren't you here on Ox Pasture application?
Wasn't me.
Wasn't you?
What is,
Okay.
question, Lisa, it says pool building, what is that? In the
So
north,
that
west
is
corner.
exactly as it sounds. There is a very fun 70s style pool with a big slide in the middle. It's very very funny. But our goal, if we can get the swimming pool outside, is to kind of cut that down, make that more of a spa building. Maybe put in like an 8x15 endless pool or something, but to get rid of it's very old and it's leaking and it needs a lot of work. So we would like to, not have that. But I did speak with the building inspector, just so you know, and there is a law that in the code that says you can't have more than one outdoor swimming pool, but it doesn't say anything about if one is inside. So. That's not part of my variance.
So that pool building will remain, it'll just be repurposed.
Correct.
So Lisa, I think you have to come back with a more full application. Because
Okay.
right now,
What-
if I'm only considering this, it's like you're asking for 2 swimming pools on a property, and I don't see us being able to justify a relief for that.
Okay. Well, like I said, that's not, there's nothing against that in the code. Are you saying that you want me to show you what I'm going to do with the pool building?
Well, if we're thinking about the benefit to your applicant, right, versus the detriment to the neighborhood, the detriment, as always, is a relaxation of the code, right, which is why you're here. The benefit sought is a pool, but you already have a pool.
We do. Like I said, it is in need of repair, but it's also inside as opposed to outside, which is kind of what the goal was to get the exterior swimming pool out in the sun and that.
But is that
But I mean, I could-
currently? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. But is
No,
that
go ahead.
existing pool? Is that being currently? Is it currently functional or no?
No. It's leaking. It needs to be. It needs work and/or repair. If if for some reason they can't go forward with the swimming pool outside, then I guess they could contemplate whether they wanted to do it inside and maybe put big open skylights or something in there that would allow the building. Right now, that it has a roof on it. It's not open to the sky.
Will you keep the indoor pool?
Like I said, the goal was to not keep the indoor pool, but potentially put in one of those 80, like they're 8-foot by 15-foot endless pools that you swim against the current. It's like the size of a hot tub, really, but we've discussed that, but we haven't gone that far yet because we were waiting to see what would happen with the swimming pool outside.
Lisa, what's the reason for not simply taking the pool building and breaking it apart and putting an outdoor pool right there? Pool for pool.
Well, you can see that that's a big building, but you can see the dotted line that goes through here is actually the 35-foot setback. So that's a pre-existing non-conforming building, so I technically couldn't put the swimming pool there either.
Because
It's also, that building also, I think if I showed you on the aerial, the neighbor's tennis court is very, very close to that property line. So that building actually helps them in terms of blocking the noise and stuff from the neighbor. So I don't know that they were looking to get rid of that building. I think that they were.
Well, all right. So the other question I'd have for you is, was there any discussion? There's an awful lot of property with the driveway and then the trees where you're putting in that tennis court. That's 25% of the property in the back half of the property. Why not put both the tennis court and the pool back there and reroute your driveway, obviously?
In the aerial, you can kind of see and I mean, I could take more photos of the property. There's a lot of mature trees all along in this general area. The reason we were trying to put it here is it happens to be the grass, it happens to be a grassy area that where it would get sun. The goal was to get the pool in a place where it would get a lot of sun. So there's a lot of big, large trees, mature trees all over here. And again, the front facade of the house is actually the east side. That's where it faces. So you really, you couldn't per se come in and come to this side of the house, the swimming pool over here, because that's not where the entry is. The entry to the house is in the middle of the house on this side.
Okay, thanks.
I thought it was a relatively unique situation in that I could double the accessory setback and get a 180-foot street setback, to the pool. So it's actually 184 feet to the pool.
Lisa, it looks like you have the pool equipment proposed to be between the swimming pool and the driveway. It seems sort of like a high-vis location. Can you talk about that?
Well, we were thinking that we would be running, whatever the pool fence would come across, and from the edge of the house there, that we would just hide it with shrubbery and plant it out, and nobody would ever see it. Nobody would really be walking over it in that direction. You'll drive in, you won't see it, and then this is where the people will be on the patio here. So we thought it was kind of actually the most hidden spot.
For me, this is difficult with the existing swimming pool. I think I could look at it with a different perspective if there was, if it came along with a proposed reconfiguration of the pool building. But right now, I don't see the benefit to the applicant. I feel like they already have it, and the pool is actually pretty cool. I don't know. Does that resonate with you guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Lisa, instead of what's potentially a denial, do you maybe want to consider pulling the application or requesting an adjournment and coming back with a little bit more of a site plan?
Sure, yeah, if I could get an adjournment, that would be great.
Okay. So, I'll move to adjourn to the, February 27th hearing. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3189 99 Sanford. Hi, Rooney.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Or you can give this to Brian. He's got this. The folder of my updates.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have to be impressed.
I was gonna say something. I'm always gonna say next.
I'm gonna have these facing you now, right? These should be out in the opposite.
Rooney, before you get into it, there's some history on this property. Alex or Brian, who's maybe better sort of give us the history that led us to tonight?
Oh, this application predates me, but as you know, there was a very similar application submitted to this board under your predecessors for these special exceptions. I believe that application was denied and is currently in legal proceedings.
Okay. So it was denied. An Article 78 was filed. The zoning board's decision was upheld, and you are appealing that
Correct.
decision currently. Okay.
Correct.
And the only member that was on the board at that time was you, Joyce, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And isn't this an interlocutory?
Is this
It's
what?
being appealed,
It is under appeal, correct?
so we're being asked to judge. something that's in the court system.
Well, it's different. This is a different application. There's
It's a different
some
application.
refinements to it.
Okay.
Thanks, Rooney. Please continue.
So this application involves a special exception request for the construction of 2 single-family dwellings on a lot that's in the zoned office district. You can see the 2 proposed houses there. And that's really what the change and why this is a changed application is that we have the houses proposed, we have the sizes of them, and it shows that they meet the R20 zoning district. It's a 20,000 square foot minimum lot requirement in the office district, so that would be the residential equivalent of that. As we move forward, I think it's important to distinguish this type of request from a variance request, which is what you normally hear. The special exception use is a use that is permitted by the code. It's been established by the village board that the use is presumptively compatible with the uses that surround the property at question. And since that use is permitted, the burden of proof is far less, bless you, is far less than that required as part of a variance application. But the village board did, when they created the zoning code, said we want to put some general safeguards on this to make sure that it is compatible with the area. They created a code that has 14 standards that you have to meet. As part of our application, we have put in a detailed argument on that. But basically, the general standards requires us to demonstrate that the use is in harmony and will not adversely impact the neighborhood. Instead of reading through that document, which I think would eternally bore you, but if you are so willing, we did do the detailed application. I just want to highlight 4 parts of that which I think are really applicable here. First of all, and as I said, the residential use has to be in harmony with the surrounding uses. And on this subdivision sketch plan that we have, I've highlighted in green those uses that are residential. I also believe that this use is residential. There was an application to the planning board to change it, but I think it's currently used as residential. I would also point the board, this is the existing building, it's an office building, and then this would be the second lot. The people really impacted by this are directly across the street, and those are 2 residential uses. I believe both have put in letters of support for the application. I believe they're here tonight on Zoom to lend their support.
For the record, just to be clear, we did not have the aerial on the screen when you were pointing at the aerial, so I don't know if anyone knows what items you were pointing to. Perhaps we can get it back on the screen, and you can, again, identify what you were talking about.
So this is Sanford. I mean, this is 99 Sanford. That's the existing office building. That would be where one of the residential structures would be, and this is the lot next door. Directly across the street are 2 residential structures, and they're the ones that are the most impacted by a grant of a special exception here. The other, the second of the prongs I think are important in this test is where the plot area is sufficient for the use, right? So the minimum lot area in the office district is 20,000 square feet. So I think that's the most equivalent to the R20, and we put on this plan conforming houses in the R20 district to show that we conform and that the plot area is sufficient. The third prong is the use will not negatively impact adjacent properties. A residential use is probably the most benign development use that creates a structure. You compare that to commercial, it's the most benign use. I would I would also answer that question another way and say, would you rather see 2 residential structures here, or an as-of-right permitted doctor's office, or a bank, funeral home, library, nursery school, all permitted uses in this zone, right? So, you know, to me, I think it's abundantly clear that the residential use is the best use of this property, considering the surrounding properties. The final prong, and this is common sense, but I went through the process with this, but the traffic and parking requirements will not impact in that neighborhood if the exception is granted. During the week, I gave you a trip generation analysis, which shows you the extreme difference between a small office and then the residences. And I can only imagine how these 2 neighbors would feel if this were 2 offices. The other thing, and my traffic engineer always does it conservatively, but the offices, the maximum size of the office in this district is 3,500 of lot coverage, and you can have 2 stories, so it could be 7,000 square feet of office in either building for 14,000 total in this area.
But couldn't the houses be the same size?
No.
Well, how big would the houses be?
It's
roughly.
On lot number 1, which is this lot, the house size is 2,912 square feet. So I guess
there's a neighborhood benefit of less density.
Far less density.
That's
Less
a proposed
traffic, yeah.
house size, not a maximum house size.
I'm looking for max house size.
It's the same as office,
Okay.
because there's no gross floor area in this district.
Except that we have proposed in the application that we would agree to develop it under the R20 residential standards, which would include the gross floor area restriction. And
Brian, that could be deeded so that 20 years from now, there wouldn't be a hearing about it.
Well, there might be in 25 years. In 27 years, they may be
27
back.
we're done, but 25, yes. It would be a
But yes, you can include it, you can require a covenant be recorded. And if the attorney points that out, then the purchaser will be aware.
Great.
And we offer that. It's an offer, we'll covenant it, put it in the decision, however you want to paper that over. But the more restrictive part of the R20 zoning code is here is lot coverage. We could actually get more on gross floor area, but it's lot coverage that's more restrictive here. So I would say, by any measure, 2 residents here as opposed to 2 office buildings that could be used in a variety of ways and create a variety of impacts here is far better. Happy to answer any questions.
What's the difference between this application and the one that's on appeal?
The inclusion of the size of the proposed structures and the inclusion of a covenant to the R20 zoning district. So it's
More
that
complete.
limits us.
No, it's limiting density,
Yeah.
which is a positive
Right.
factor for the neighborhood.
Right.
Agreed.
Okay, so that's materially different than the one that's in the court
Right.
system.
The other thing is, once we got the denial, we did make a site plan application to the planning board, and that was vehemently opposed by the neighbors. And the planning board told us to come back to this board. And it was impossible at the time until.
Sorry to interrupt, Rooney. Site plan application for a office?
For the offices,
For the
right?
offices.
Because that's where we were stuck. And they, in no uncertain terms, told us to try and come back here. We couldn't, so that's why we went through the appeal process and then came upon the opportunity to limit it with the R20, which we would have done in the beginning. I mean, that's something that's reasonable.
And the appeal process is for commercial or residential use?
Residential.
Oh, so, okay.
Pretty similar.
So the substantive difference is the square footage buildable on the lots. you're
Correct,
proposing.
correct. That's correct.
In other words, the case on appeal, the houses are not limited, but what you're proposing today is we put in the R20 limitations.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Sounds like an improvement to me.
Now, Carol, how does that affect your thinking?
I think it looks like a great addition to the neighborhood. It reduces traffic, which is a major issue in this area, and it protects the neighbors across the street, so it's an improvement to the quality of life in the neighborhood. So I would say all in all, with the R20 restrictions, you get less density, less traffic, improvement in the neighborhood, and helping to the neighbors. Good, like it.
So with that, I'll go to you, Joyce. You were on the board. I think it was a unanimous decision, yes, to deny the variance request.
Special
What-
exception.
Sorry, special exception, thank you. Has anything changed for you? What?
I don't, I mean,
So that didn't have the R20.
yeah, it didn't, that's what I was gonna say, it didn't have the R20 zoning guidelines in there, so I am favorably inclined to it now, because as Carol outlined, I think it's great for the neighborhood in terms of reducing the density and the traffic and, you know, converting to residential use.
Just clarification, it was a 3-1 vote.
3-1.
Yep.
Do you know which way Joyce voted?
Yes.
So do I.
I'm permitted to change my mind.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
You need a lawyer, Joyce?
Okay. This is interesting. If we look at this case in a vacuum, it's one thing, right? How does the board feel, though, about the fact, and I think we have to discuss this, how does the board feel about the fact that it was different initially, but it did go through the proper channels, and the board deliberated on it extensively. They voted on it. It was denied, and that decision was upheld in the court.
But on different facts.
So yeah, we'll elaborate on that, Carol.
There was no agreement when converting the property to residential. What we're being told here is there was no agreement to restrict the buildability to the R20 restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
They've added that restriction now.
Mm-hmm.
So that changes the facts.
How substantively does the R20 restriction cut the square footage buildable?
Well, if we look at the lots, the house on lot 1 is going to be, or could be 2,912 square feet, where you could have 7,000 square feet of office. I haven't done a full site plan to see if we can park the 7,000
So it's at
square
least the 50, roughly.
And then the lot 2, the house is proposed at 3,885 square feet, and it could also have 7,000 square feet of office.
So if it's commercial, its
7.
requirement is lot coverage, right? So you can maximize your lot coverage, and then you can double it because you can have a two-story house.
So that's where you get the 14,000
That's where you get
square
14.
feet
Yeah.
versus like 7 with these two. I need my calculator.
Well, they're proposing
Roughly
essentially
seven.
3,000 and 4,000.
Little
Yeah,
under
that's
7,
roughly
yeah.
7 in round.
Yeah.
So from the point of view of the neighborhood, it's a 50% reduction in buildable density.
In
No,
structure.
I don't know about coverage, but square foot
In
density.
structure, yes.
And a vast reduction in traffic and congestion.
That's a good point too, thank you.
I confirm the prior decision was made a part of this application, so you do have that in your files.
Okay.
And green space as well. If you build that office building, you're gonna be taking down trees, et cetera, and there'll be a lot of cement. So here we're gonna have front yards and backyards and so on. So it's a different build.
All right, so let me play devil's advocate a little bit to the board now. It is a substantive change to agree to the limit to R20. But it is still, Carol, a change of use, which is
Correct.
essentially what the board did deny the first time
On different facts.
on different facts. So the assumption then, perhaps, is that had that board been contemplating the application today, you think they may have come to a different conclusion?
I'm not gonna presume to what they would do or could do or might have done, but I do know this. If they were going before that board today, they would say to the board, I'm gonna give you more green space. I'm gonna give you a 50% reduction in the volume you're gonna have out there. I'm gonna reduce the traffic by 80% or some high percentage. I'm gonna reduce the light pollution, because you're not gonna have the, office buildings and all that. Wouldn't you think that would have a different result, perhaps at least in the deliberations, if not the ultimate decision?
Okay.
So my only concern here is if you took Carol's arguments to the extreme and there were no office spaces, it would be detrimental to our village.
But that's not the facts before us today. We have a lot of office.
I agree there are plenty, but
you
you have to have both or you can't have a village.
No, but this is a win-win for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think,
We'll have empty office space in the village.
one of the things that you have to consider is sort of the thought process behind the special exception standards, right? And, I wouldn't be asking you for two structures on Hampton Road next to those large offices, right? It's not appropriate there. But as you get further out on North Sea Road, it becomes more residential behind it. And I think that's where it's more appropriate. So there are areas where it wouldn't be appropriate to put a house because you're in the middle of office spaces and those types of uses. Whereas here, you're out in a more further down North Sea Road in a more residential area, surrounded by residences.
Is there anyone in the public who wants to say anything about this case, or anyone on the Zoom stage? Nobody?
I would just add one small comment.
Go ahead, Carol.
There's very little difference between the location of this house and the one we have just, we've been deliberating over the last few months on Hillcrest. It is beside the Clam Man. Right?
Yeah.
Behind an office, across from a
Right here.
business.
That one's right here on the map across the railroad tracks.
This one made me think of it. Yeah. I mean, this is not, what he's asking is not unusual to have houses in the proximity to the roadway, as this one presents in this case.
Okay.
Luke, I think what the board had objected to before and resulting in the denial, the previous decision, was the fact of the change of use for that property.
Without the square footage
But
restriction?
it's not a change of use, right? It's a special exception use. This is a permitted use. The zoning code permits it under certain circumstances. And there are 14 standards, I think the four main ones I went through, and I think prove overwhelmingly that these two lots should be residentially improved instead of office improved.
Sage, did you say someone did want to come in? Hi, Michelle.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Michel Brogard. I'm the owner of 99 Stanford, directly across from the abandoned office that we're discussing today. Thank you for your time tonight, and I completely agree with the argument that's been developed so far. I would like one more, which is it's been essentially abandoned for 15 years, and obviously not collecting any property taxes for the village, and it's time to make a decision and move forward to properly developing that area that's been an eyesore for so long. I would also emphasize on the fact that with the fact that the Red Horse Market is going to replace Schwitz Market that's been abandoned for 2 years, the traffic, as mentioned by Carol, the traffic coming out of the parking lot through Sanford Place into North Sea Road is, and I take that egress, as you can imagine, several times a day in the summertime, is crazy. It's so dangerous. People just wait there, and then after a while they lose patience and just jump into the North Sea Road traffic, just the traffic from the parking lot. So imagine if we had 2 offices at the very end of that residential cul-de-sac, and you had, as Carol mentioned, a bunch of cars coming in and out for a doctor's office or something. It would be super dangerous. So anyway, I just wanted to repeat that not only I support this, but I've spoken to all the residential neighbors on Sanford Place, and everybody agrees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I feel as if we have a consensus on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Carol?
Carol?
I think she may be.
Yeah. Are you leaning one way or another? Do you want time to think about this? Do you?
I'm comfortable. I would approve it. I would lean toward yes.
Okay. In that case, I will move to close the application for written decision. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brian, I think you have direction.
I do.
Okay.
But the R20 thing is important, because that's the
Understood.
distinguisher.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll incorporate the condition that you just spoke about in the
Yes.
decision.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it differentiable.
To an extent that it doesn't get lost, like and missed by an attorney if the property trades, right?
Free trades.
Yeah.
We can make a covenant, put it in the decision as a condition.
Okay.
There's 2 ways for a lawyer to catch it then.
Okay. Okay. Thanks,
We
Rick.
like that.
Or we only need one of those if it's John Bennett who's representing the buyer.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I was dazzled by your reference. Thank you.
The next case is 3190-484 First Neck Lane.
Sage, we may have Lisa Rickmers on Zoom to join the board for this case, if she's available.
Ready, Luke?
Okay, so, Alex, this is a request for a wetland special permit. Could you just, before we get into this, refresh our memories and on what the standards are and how they're different from an area variance request?
Sure. So as you remember, this is not a type of variance. This is a permit that is granted by this board based on the criteria that's set forth in the code. There are certain regulated areas that people have to come to this board to get approval for if they're doing a regulated activity. And this is considered a regulated activity in a regulated area. So they need approval from this board based on the standards that are set forth in the wetlands code, which basically means that it can't be detrimental to the wetlands, to the natural. It should be as protective as possible to the natural environment, and that to the extent possible that it maximize setbacks to sensitive areas. This application happens to be for a dock, which of course can only be at the water's edge. So that's why it's located where it is. We did receive a report today from the board's wetlands consultant. So I'm sorry that was not that made available sooner, but I've given a hard copy to all of the board members and to the applicant as well. And I believe there's some thoughts and recommendations in there. And I should mention that this type of application also needs approvals from other approving bodies as well.
Who?
The freeholders and commonality trustees
Okay.
of the town of Southampton, and I believe also the DEC.
So typically, when we've heard these sort of applications before, they've already have town trustee approval. John, are you the attorney for this case?
Yes, I am.
Why not go to the town trustees first?
We already have.
We have it.
Oh,
Approved.
Yeah.
Alex, yes?
Was that approval submitted with the application? It looked like you said you were submitting concurrently when you.
We
Name.
do not have the formal permit.
Jim, could you introduce yourself, please, for the record?
Jim Walker from InterScience. This is John Ciccarello. He's going to do the technical stuff. John Bennett for Maximilian and Sarah Cascante, 484 First Neck Lane. Luke, to properly address that process with a dock on Lake Agawam is to go to all the regulatory agencies. Board of Trustees have reviewed the project, approved all of it, including issuing a resolution of approval.
Jim, let's just, conversationally, let's distinguish town trustees versus village trustees.
Town trustees.
Yeah, thank you. Just for clarity's sake.
Now,
They actually own the bottom of Lake Agawam.
when you have a resolution of approval from the Board of Trustees for the town, you then have to have an engineered plan drawn up. It gets submitted and then a formal permit is released. We generally do not do that until we at least go through the process of meeting with the village. Now, for what it's worth, you're cutting the presentation short and getting to the facts of the matter quicker than I had probably planned. So in terms of permits and approvals, we're required to go to the New York State Department of State. I have a non-jurisdiction letter that was issued on this project. It's fully approved by the Department of State. Army Corps has also similarly issued a non-jurisdiction letter pursuant to Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899. New York State DEC has also issued a non-jurisdiction letter for this project. Now, I went to those at the same time that I originally submitted to the village and to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees get you on the agenda fairly quickly. We go through a process where we have a work session, then we have a regular meeting where the resolution is approved, and all of those things have already happened. We've hired an engineer to draw up the plans, but it would be offensive to come to the village and say, this is how we're gonna do it. Come to the village with a proposal. The proposal is well thought through, knowing full well the wetlands restrictions in the village. John Bennett had me go to the property early on before the property closed. And I checked their wetlands buffer. The wetlands buffer is intact.
It's actually a very more than one of the more extensive buffers. I'm sorry to interrupt on Agawam. Is that fair to say, Jim?
Yes, and it was designed by a wonderful landscape architect years ago for the prior property owner. I don't know how old the landscape architect is at this point, but I worked with him over many years ago, and the wetlands buffer is pleasing, it's pleasant, it's intact. Some of the plantings got older. That's about the end of that story. We submitted plans to the village at the same time I started with the trustees. There's a new survey. I noticed in the H2M report that they are suggesting wetlands line update. There is a new wetlands line on the sea level mapping bathymetric map. And Luke, if I'm going too fast, John can bring it up on the screen at any point. We have a new wetlands line. It's part of the application.
Yeah, let's take a look at it, because I'm just looking at the Google Maps photo, and it looks like this homeowner is mowing a lot of their buffer.
That's a meadow that was designed by Peter Cummins. That meadow is intact, and it's exactly the correct size, and it has a nature path approved through it. And the little path is kind of fun, and it allows you to walk around the high grass much as you would a nature trail in the Everglades or Key West or something. It's a very well thought out wetlands buffer. Again, the main difference between the planting plan that was approved years ago and the planting plan that exists on the site is the plants are much bigger and older. They are those plants that were originally approved.
Okay.
I presume they were approved as part of the historical approvals issued by this board, which were all submitted along with the deed early on in the process after Luke. I think, Alex, you told me we had to submit the old records. So we went back to the village, got the old records, we submitted them, but prior to that, we had field inspected the property, and that wetlands buffer is intact.
I was very conscientious about that, having represented the purchaser of that. We sent Jim out. He compared the existing conditions to the approved buffers.
It's kind of encouraging. The wetlands buffer is intact and is performing the way it was intended when it was drawn up by Peter Cummins years ago, and I would presume that was part of the Bonet ownership.
And Bonet did a couple. He did some additions to the property, and that's probably where the buffer conditions came out.
For what it's worth, the approach to the dock comes off the little nature trail and extends to the shoreline on a very efficient manner, so that the actual change in the footprint caused by a small dock is very limited. So a 4-foot wide path would go from the existing 4-foot wide path down to the water. And it would provide riparian access to the surface waters of Lake Montauk.
Agawam.
Agawam.
Sorry.
A little east.
Lake Montauk used to be freshwater too.
Before they cut the, yes they did.
So,
it also, just if I may interrupt, it's not the only dock that has been installed. And in 2008, the board granted approval to construct a dock of comparable size at 340 First Neck Lane. So it's not new territory we're asking for.
I got approval for that dock for John and Jenny Paulson, and it extends exactly 10 feet into the water. The Board of Trustees for the town of Southampton have a restriction in freshwater bodies that we go 10 feet into the water. We're only allowed to do certain things. Moreover, the dock is made out of tropical hardwood. It has to be non-treated material. It has to be elevated 26 inches above the grade of the vegetated wetlands, has a little ramp up, goes out a certain number of feet, has a little ramp down. The end of the dock has a landing. The landing is 26 inches over the surface waters of Lake Agawam. And then we propose a 4-foot by 6-foot drop platform, which is 6 inches lower, and that's to allow the property owner to put a canoe or a kayak into the lake. There are a tropical handrail, tropical hardwood handrail with vinyl wire 3 inches on center to prevent kids from falling off the dock into the water or onto the property. There's a little drop in topography as you come off the property and go down to Lake Montauk. This dock would look almost exactly like the 2 docks that I got approved for the Board of Town Trustees at the south end of Lake Agawam next to the rain garden that John and I designed years ago. They're a little less handrail visible because property owner was very interested in how things would proceed and chose the the stainless steel wire with the vinyl coating. The stainless steel with a vinyl coating is identical to the handrail system at the north end of the lake at the boardwalk that John and I designed for the village at the park. There's a nice little handrail. Some of the carpentry is really lousy. Short of that, the work there keeps the kids from falling in the lake. So that's the kind of design, and John has a picture up showing that approach on a different dock somewhere else. But that's the dock design for the handrail that the property owner chose. Again, it's for the safety of children, and so you don't fall into the lake or off the dock. Has a little kayak sling. The kayak sling is open framed. The dock itself is constructed with through flow decking, which is 60% light transmissive to allow the wetlands grasses to grow underneath. It's a nice little dock. I think that's the bulk of what I have for the board, unless members have specific questions for Mr. Bennett or myself. There is a new wetlands line.
How old is the wetlands line, Jim?
It is from,
Because H2M is saying it's 10 years old now.
it is from August 14th.
And who flagged it?
Bob Fox.
2024?
Yeah, that's Robert H. Fox. Robert H. Fox is sea level mapping. He's
Well, he did the soundings as well.
he did all the work that our design is based on a bathymetric map from sea level mapping. He does the bulk of the soundings for jobs that I design, and is.
Do we have this drawing in our file, Alex?
Yeah, you
I can
have
double
it.
check. I believe it was submitted.
We submitted the whole outline to the board. The whole public hearing outline is part of your record.
But obviously, any questions or additional documentation, we're more than happy to support. Supply, excuse me, sorry.
So this is the side from the dock that's at the park end. This would be the second dock in Lake Agawam?
No, there's docks all up and down Lake Agawam.
No, I'm just giving an example of one that the board had approved.
This was submitted as part of the digital submission? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. Was it submitted as part of another document, maybe?
The
soundings in the
wetlands
outline?
Yeah, the one that's shown on the screen?
Yeah.
Bathymetric?
Okay.
I don't see it, guys.
That's all right. We can submit it as a follow-up
Okay.
to the board. Again, the whole idea is we go to the Board of Trustees for the town. We go to the state, we go to the federal government, we get all their comments, and then we come back in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. But we made all the work to date based on comments from those regulatory agencies.
Alex, I did find it. It's part of a larger document.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
It's kind of small and understated. It's a very small survey. It's only for the waterfront, as compared to the survey is this big, and the bathymetric map is an 8.5 by 11 document.
Do we have Lisa Rickmers on hand to speak?
Yes, I believe she's in the Zoom. And while we wait for her to join, I'll mention that because of its location, we were required to refer this to the County Planning Commission, and you have a letter in the file saying that it's a matter for local determination.
So it did go to the county already, and
Yes.
they said it's up to us.
Yes, yep, and there's 2 comments in there as well about stormwater and erosion sediment controls.
Okay.
Sage, were we able to promote Lisa as a panelist?
Yep,
Oh,
here
there
she
she
comes.
is. Great, thanks.
Let's put her up on big screen. Yes. Hi, Lisa. You're muted.
How's that?
Much better.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I kind of jumped in partway through that presentation, so I didn't hear everything from the beginning, but I'm happy to summarize or discuss the memo I prepared and the comments that I had. You know, the related to the freshwater wetlands delineation, my understanding was that map that was shared was the mapping of the lake and not a freshwater wetlands delineation. And the delineation shown on the survey that included the proposed work was the earlier delineation.
Okay.
And, was labeled as the earlier delineation from 2015. So it wasn't clear that there had been an update in that case.
In all fairness to Lisa, I think we probably should have a wetlands line on the survey, and then the board would have a more complete record.
Okay.
So we can put the Fox wetlands line on the Squires and Holden survey.
That would
Why
probably
don't we
be.
do that? Yeah.
Yep.
Does that work?
Yeah, I think that's just so that the record's complete and it's clear that ultimately also, you know, go looking forward that the wetlands line that's reflected on the survey is the one that is accurate as of 2024.
Yeah.
Wait, so Alex, do they get it flagged by their surveyor and then the village sends someone to inspect the flaggings like Southampton Town does, or?
In some cases, people come to the village and we have our consultants, one of Lisa's colleagues goes out and flag it.
Okay,
In this case,
okay.
they've had somebody else that they've hired flag
Okay.
it.
They as in the applicants.
Yeah, the applicant hired someone in this case to flag it.
Generally, Luke, we would submit a copy of the survey with a $500 check. And since the wetlands line is already been used for all the design, probably want to stick with the wetlands line that we have been using and ask Lisa to verify it.
Yeah, I mean, we need to have the wetlands line that is the wetlands line.
Probably a holiday by me. I should have caught it earlier. The fact that I didn't. In self-defense, we did have the surveyor put the dock on the survey. So it's been updated, but it should have a wetlands line properly defined. $500 check and a request to the building inspector and to the village to verify the wetlands line.
Yeah, but we need to do that.
Yeah, that's fair game.
Okay. Lisa, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Oh, no problem. So the other items I know to the extent that it's already discussed, but I'll just, you know, review some basics points that the memo addressed, which, you know, one of the key points is that there's additional permitting required to establish this dock, and some of that permitting may impact what this design looks like and whether or not there's any mitigation. You know, there could be requirements from the DEC, and it's my understanding that in the past, before a special wetlands permit was issued for a dock installation, these other permits were already secured by the applicant so that the zoning board could take into account the project in its entirety and those recommended changes.
I agree with that.
It's worth reiteration, particularly since Lisa, I think, admittedly came into the meeting late. The trustees of the Commonalty and freeholders of the state, of the town, which is the town trustees, have signed off on it subject to engineering.
They have approved it. They have a resolution of approval.
Well, we should get that to Alex and to the board.
And Lisa, for what it's worth, we also already went to the Army Corps, DEC, and to the Department of State. Those regulatory agencies are resolved. And,
So let's get that to Lisa, and let's get that to Alex, because
Yeah,
then
it's
they
it's
speak for
easy.
themselves.
It's more or less the presentation that I have for you tonight.
But-
So we'll follow it up and put it
Yeah.
to Alex and to the building department.
I
She-
think we'd
right.
feel most comfortable being your last stop, right? So,
Well, we are your last
Yeah,
stop,
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but you should have that written documentation in the record, and we'll
Thank
provide
you.
it for you.
The one question that I have, and I'm not a dock design expert, but in terms of this kayak position of this kayak rack, is why can't they flip it to other side and move it off the wetlands?
The simple answer to that is, generally, we're not in the wetlands, we're in the wetlands buffer.
Wow.
We're open framed, and we want to take a kayak out of a rack and slide it down the dock and go into the water. It's a matter of convenience. We're not in the wetlands per se. We're not gonna kill the wetlands grasses that were designed by Peter Cummins, the landscape architect that worked for the Bonet property owner at the time. That stuff will all stay. There's gonna be a kayak above it. It's not gonna get killed. It's elevated, it's open framed, there's nothing touching the ground.
Oh, God.
It's different than if we were putting it in the wetlands. Sometimes the DEC will tell us not to put kayak racks in the wetlands, especially if there's slopes. This property is flat, there aren't any slopes, but we want to make it convenient for the property owner to actually use the dock. The dock is a convenience, but it also brings the property owner to the location. In other words, they can use the surface waters of Lake Agawam. You can canoe and kayak there. I've canoed and kayaked there, caught fish many years, maybe 30, 40 years at this point. It's a fun place to go canoeing and kayak. In fact, there is a boat ramp at the edge, at the southeast corner of the rain garden. Fred Havemeyer had me add it at the last minute because he wanted to make sure that the boaters would have access to go into the water and go fishing. The kayak rack is a amenity to allow people to use a kayak or a canoe.
Okay. I just had to ask that question for clarification.
Stand-up paddleboard, stuff like that.
Thank you.
Jim, you have a bit of a protected cove here, and I wonder what the thought process was in not locating your dock in there as opposed to out into the
That's
lake.
very interesting, right on point. Why would I tell the guy not to do that? The reason is it's full of lily pads. The same exact situation that happened at John and Jenny Paulson. We built a dock. There was a wide band of lily pads. They actually got a permit from the Board of Trustees in the water to trim the lily pads so you could get a canoe and kayak up. I don't think it's appropriate for anybody to put a dock into the little bay. It's there, it looks smart, looks like a good idea, but if you go there in August, you will see it's choked with lily pads, and there are wetlands there, and there's shorebirds and great blue herons and whatnot, and the idea would appear smart, and it's probably just not the right thing.
Lisa, what do you think? And that picture
Yeah.
certainly tells a different story.
Yeah, I mean, we know also that Lake Agawam, is struggling with a lot of, algae, and growth of many plants. That it does appear to be very highly vegetated, and this image makes it pretty clear as to why you would site a dock in a slightly different location. My understanding is that there's no, powerboat use on Lake Agawam, so the concerns that would be related to things like, interference with the use of the lake from going out in a more direct way don't seem to apply here. So it does seem to be logical where they've chosen to locate it.
Okay. And when we talk about the spirit of wetlands buffers, how do you feel about that inner field of the, I guess the edge, the waterfront edge? it's not mowed like a putting green, but it is mowed high. And are we still getting the benefits there that we would expect to get from a wetlands buffer? There you go. That's a good picture.
Yes, that's good vision of it. So it'll be interesting to have an updated delineation on, ideally there is an unmaintained area of wetlands with a variety of native species that are then appropriate depending on the environment that you're in, meaning the proximity to the water. So there's upland species versus, species that would be closer to the water. And the greatest benefit will be to have that area in its natural state, assuming it's not been overtaken by invasive species or something else. It's not any type of vegetation, it's appropriate vegetation. Then it will serve the greatest purpose of both, ecologically, just providing a habitat and environment, but also that amazing, sponge-like quality that wetlands have for water absorption and allowing the natural fluctuation in the amount of water in the lake.
Thanks.
So I can't quite tell from this photo, distance or area, but also this property is, for special wetlands permits in Southampton for something like this, the area of regulation where a special wetlands permit is 150-foot setback, and at that point you're at the house. So it's worth just noting that there also is a constrained space. This one maybe shows better the degree of just how close that is.
But the house conforms.
The house conforms, that it was part of an old decision. Moreover, the planting plan that was approved provides a meadow that's maintained in a certain manner. What happens in a meadow that's maintained in a certain manner? You have goldenrods and milkweeds, which have a real benefit to wildlife and to the water quality in Lake Agua. And there are some small areas where the trees got big and the shrubs got tall, and these areas are probably in excess of the original design, and perhaps there could be a little mitigation along the south property line. But those areas that are there are providing a real wetlands buffer to the lake, and it's done in a manner that's aesthetically pleasing, and it has been there for a considerable amount of time. Probably in deference to Cummins landscape architecture, this is a well-designed little plan that was drawn up by a landscape architect from England, and the little meadow does provide ecological benefit, same way as my milkweed garden at home. It's a nice little feature that has been maintained for lots of years and has persisted and works for the property. So I think it's a real good solution for this particular property. It's especially nice and unusually intact after a lot of years. I don't know when the Bonet decisions were issued. I probably submitted them to the board, but that
So
wet meadow is a
we've
nice.
had sort of these semantics come up a little bit tonight, and Lisa points out that the ideal wetlands buffer is unmaintained, and you have mentioned that this has been maintained to high quality standards.
Yeah.
How do we square that, guys?
If I may, a lot of wetlands buffers are maintained. There is a landscape management plan that's filed. For example, a lot of wetlands jurisdictions say you have two options. You can just let it go.
Right.
Or you can file a landscape management plan, which essentially is a plan which shows the planting out of the buffer, the active planting of the buffer, which is which has been done in this instance. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes.
So if I can chime in with a couple of just comments, because you're referencing a landscaping and vegetation plan, but that's something I assume was part of a different earlier application. It's a
Yes.
historic plan that exists?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because I did not see that as part of this application. I don't.
Okay, well, let's get that.
We could submit that.
Let's submit that.
Yes.
Let's get the plan. So,
Yes, let's please hear what that was, and then, you know, I might propose to my fellow board members as a condition of approval, we do have a flood zone line that crosses the property. We go from the AE12, AE13, and that almost seems like an appropriate extension of a wetlands buffer. Certainly, we don't have much buffer surrounding the cove.
So I just want to look at the zones. Well, of course, you know that flood zones have nothing to do with wetlands regulations. Flood zones are only based upon a model of what the rise will be during a flood event, and thus there are required elevation
Of
requirements
course.
for the house. I would be remiss not to point that out.
Sure.
Yeah, so just to round out some of the other comments just in the memo, so in addition to what sounds like you actually have this documentation, so it's not that you've already kind of got tentative approval from the trustees and of the freeholders and commonality of the town of Southampton, that you already have had permitting from the New York State DEC and the Army Corps. So, seeing that is important. Also, one of the things I noted that wasn't present here was a clear indication of what the area of disturbance was going to be and what the restoration plan, if there was a restoration plan within that area. I realize that docks are not super construction intensive like other kinds of construction, but presumably there will be some degree of disturbance on that waterfront exceeding the area of the dock, so that these two things kind of go hand in hand. Perhaps the restoration plan at this point is just to continue with the previously approved landscaping plan, but seeing what the plan is would be helpful to understand, the full context of the wetlands mitigation here.
So why don't we do that? And Jim, just for everyone's comfort, typically on the wetlands applications, we provide a construction methodology to make sure that everything is, there's no marshaling of, construction materials in inappropriate areas and stuff like that. Could we
Yes,
do that?
we'll certainly do that.
And if anything is going to be disturbed during construction, a plan to make sure that's revegetated.
And I think I will encourage the property owner to go ahead with the engineer at this point.
So we'll actually, since the trustees are waiting for the engineered plans, we might as well do that and show the village.
Yeah.
I can't finish with the trustees till I give them an engineering.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll get that done.
More augmented package, more in line with what we've seen on some other applications. Decisions from the other regulatory boards that you've seen.
Well, some of them are, I'm sorry, there's non-jurisdiction
to the
letters,
extent that you can,
Mhm.
right? Non-jurisdiction letters, allow Lisa to check some of her boxes.
Got it.
The wetlands plan that was previously approved and has been the guide for the past X amount of years. Right? How do we feel about that?
Makes sense.
Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah.
It should be in the file.
Okay.
It should be part of the,
Okay.
I think it'll help you analyze it
Joyce,
as
what do you
well.
think?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. I think we need to see more complete package with that information.
Okay. Okay.
If you're able to distinguish the additional cleared area for that new path and show that on the plans, I know that's something that the board has asked for in the past.
Square feet.
Yep, thank you.
That'd be good.
Carol, is there anything that you want to add? Did we lose her?
No, you're taking a lot of notes. No, it sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So,
I also took notes.
you got the notes too. Okay, and you can call Alex or Brian. All right, so I will move to adjourn to the February 17th.
27th.
27th, of course, hearing.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks.
Can I get a second?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry I was late notice, but I'm glad I was able to join.
No, that's fine.
take care.
Thank you for making the time. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You know, and actually, Lisa, so maybe next month we can front load this application and you can be here.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Take
Alex,
care. Bye.
is this it for Lisa tonight?
Yeah, I believe applications 6 and 7 are just area variances.
Okay.
So I think that's the end of wetlands for tonight.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, great. Take care.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
And if you like, we could put wetlands applications at the top of the agenda for the next meeting, if you prefer.
Sure, yeah, yes. Please do. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Night.
Thanks, John.
Night, John.
All right, that was First Neck Lane, so now we'll go to case 3192, 57 Old Town Road.
Good evening, board.
Hello.
Hi. This is Leo, architect for 57 Old Town Road. So, this is the subject property pictures. This is the existing. The house is actually quite a bit of it.
Lucy, you can turn those towards you. So
Oh, I can turn it
yes,
towards me now.
That's right.
Oh.
Big improvement.
Big improvement. So the current house is a one-story ranch, and it has a attached garage here, and then quite a bit of this existing dwelling is in the setback. And what we're proposing is to remove this house and build a two-story dwelling. And the house itself doesn't really require setback relief because we save a little sliver of the existing house that's in the existing house footprints in the in here. It's about like 15.7 feet, and it's a sliver because the house is so narrow. This lot is very, very narrow. On this side, on Old Town Road here, this is Bellows. On Old Town Road, this is only 74.05 feet. And it tapers when it goes into Bellows. And on this side is only 66.09 feet. So the variance we are asking for is the swimming pool and the detached garage. And the detached garage is the typical 520 square foot. And the code just recently changed, I believe it was last April or May. And the setback changed from 10 feet to 12 feet. And we are asking 2 feet of relief in the back. And in the front, we have 32.71 feet on one end and 33.44 feet on the other side. And the swimming pool, we have 40 feet setback just as well as the garage. We have 40 feet front yard setback. And we are asking for 33.8 feet setback on one side and 35.2 feet setback on the other side. So the swimming pool, we're asking the maximum 2.6 feet relief. And for the garage, we're asking 7.28 on the street side and 2 feet on the neighbor's side. And we are, I collected some survey from the neighborhood. So we have 48 Bellows, and there has a detached garage that's very close to the street. It's about 26.7 feet. And as you can see, if we do attached garage, we only need to be 30 feet setback. But if it's detached, we need to be 40 feet. And so a lot of attached garage in the neighborhood is actually quite close to the street, like 30 feet. And the closest I can find is on the corner of Old Town and Bellows. and they are 28 feet from the garage to the road. I mean, to the property line, not to the street. And so you can see that's the picture of the street, and this is the 28 feet to the property line. And to our house, to the north side, which is right here on this side, right here is the neighbor's garage, which is like 9.9 feet to the property line. So I felt like this is a small request for a detached garage, and it's in keeping with the neighborhood, and especially detached garage is only 16 feet high maximum. I have the plans, and if the board wants to see it. So it's a typical hip roof detached garage. So the next thing I want to talk about is the swimming pool. Swimming pool setback. I know there is a property on the corner of Moses and Amount, and this is variance for the swimming pool is 34 feet versus 50 feet required, and it's very similar to our lot, and it's one side is 98 feet. When it tapers to this side, it's only 64 feet. And they have the garage setback of 26.4 feet, and then the pool house 27.8 feet, and well, they're supposed to have 50 feet, and it's much more of relief that they got, and I worked on this project, and I worked on the main house, but I've been there for many times. I never felt that the relief that's given to the pool house garage or pool is excessive. And then I also know Pulaski Street, on the corner of Pulaski and North Woolley. This house has a 20 feet swimming pool setback versus 35 feet that's required. I know this lot because I worked on across the street. I remember they had the variance for that one. For the houses in this neighborhood, we know that 66 Bellows is on this cul-de-sac, and I believe when they developed the cul-de-sac, they say, okay, everything in this cul-de-sac is a rear yard setback. So it is 20 feet that they did the swimming pool, and they did conform to code. They didn't really ask for variance, but you can see 20 feet to the property line with the shops right in front of it. You can't really tell. And I believe the board recently approved 60 Breeze Lane. I have the survey here. That's 35 feet setback versus 50 feet. It's a corner lot. And also 93 Old Town. It's also a corner lot, very, very narrow, so they get the swimming pool setback. The homeowner apologized that she couldn't make it today because she has to work in the hospital tonight, or early tomorrow morning, I don't remember, it's a shift. And she did write a letter, and it's in the file, that she picked this lot not knowing that there's a 2 front yard setback because it's a walking distance to the hospital. She felt like she made a terrible mistake, and she would like to really hope that the board will grant the relief so that she could she could put in her detached garage and the pool that she would use to exercise, the long narrow swimming pool, 14 feet by 42 feet, and I think that's about what I can say right now, and I don't know if board has any questions for me.
All right, so let's see. I'm gonna try something here. I'm going to try to share my screen.
While you're doing that, can I just ask, the surveys and the properties that you referenced, were those documents previously submitted to the board?
Which one? You mean?
All of them?
The foil? Not my property, the other property.
Correct.
Yeah, I got it from the building department.
No, but did you submit copies of those to the village as part of this file?
I submitted most of them except the new one, the Palatro and the Breeze Lane. Those are recently approved that I didn't realize there was such approval, and I just put it last week. The rest of them is in there.
So we'll need copies of those last two then?
Yes,
Be-
I will upload.
Give them to Alex?
Yes, I will.
All right, so let's do this, guys. I'm gonna lay over a piece of tracing paper, right? And let's take a look at what we're asking for, right? We've got a request there, a request here.
No, I don't have request there. It's 10 feet. It's 10
12
it's
feet is
12
required.
I'm sorry, it's 12 feet.
12 feet is required, so you
Yeah, I'm
have 10.
giving 12 feet.
Looks like 10 and 10 on the survey.
No. It's 12 feet.
Says 10.
Says 10.
No, I think you're looking at the
He circled 10.
there is a new submission supersede this one.
Oh. Okay.
Because I didn't realize the code changed.
Okay.
So when I first submitted, I did 10 and 10. And then the building inspector called me to go over and replace the file, which I did. So we only doing the 10 in the rear, but we're doing 12 on the side.
Okay, so because number 3 on your application still has 12 to 10 for the north side lot line.
Only on the north side, not on
Okay.
the west side.
Okay, so not that one.
Not that one for sure.
Okay.
Because the reason I did the 2 is because either I asked for 2 over there or add those 2 to the front.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like, we has always been 10 feet, and then the neighbor has a 10 feet right there. So it seems like it's okay to me, but if the board really wants me to move it forward, I will move forward, then I will have to ask for more relief on the street side.
Okay. All right, so that...
Just to note, the reference that the architect is making is to a submission she made on December 28th that shows a site plan that's dated August 2024, revision date 9/30/24. I don't know if should have been another date on that, or if that date corresponds with the original site plan.
Oh, right. I forgot the revision date.
All right, so we'll reference it as the December 28th submission, which does show a proposed garage 12 and 12 from the two property lines.
12 and 10. 12
Not
and 10.
12 and...
Because I did the 12.
Oh, okay, 12, that's 12, where's the arrow? 12 feet to the west and 10 feet to the north.
Yes.
Okay. And we talk about the swimming pool. We've got this area non-conforming.
Correct.
But if I'm correct, we can go up to here.
No.
No?
Swimming pool is 20 feet setback.
There's your pool setback.
It's not accessory setback.
Okay. Okay, and then we have, for the main house, we have this little sliver here.
Correct. I can push the house towards the neighbor a little bit more because we allow 10 feet setback. But I felt like I'd rather pull it a little bit away from the neighbor than push it closer to them. And also, my existing house is here, and that little sliver I'm asking is only 1 story. It's just like a bay window. It's only 1 story. So I felt like I felt like I'd rather to keep that instead of pushing the whole house towards the neighbor.
I think it's so minimal. Why don't you replan to remove it from your request?
Well, the house is so narrow. It's just that little bit helps us to put a couch there. That's all. It's so little. It's only 1.44 feet on one side. The other side is only 0.92 feet.
I know, it's just, and look, it's little, but there's feasible alternatives.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah, agreed.
It's like, we removed so much from the existing house that's like 395 square foot, that existing non-conforming, and we only asked for a little bit of bay window. Site so tiny, it's like less than a foot to a foot and 4 inches, 5 inches.
I hear you, the site is tiny, but that was never an unknown quantity, right? So we
Yeah.
have to design to the site that we have. So I would also say that you should make this 12 feet as well.
Yeah, I can do that, but then I will have to ask a little bit more relief for the front yard.
But then it's one less line.
that's
What's one less
fine.
line of relief?
That I can do that.
Okay.
I can talk to the homeowner, we'll do that.
How do you feel about that choice?
No, I agree. Yeah.
Wholesale, is this something you think you could get behind?
Yeah, I think so with the proposed changes.
Linda, Tom,
I'd,
Carol?
I'd like to see it, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
I want to see the new plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Linda?
Yeah.
Okay. She'd be going the right route to maybe make some of these changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carol,
Yes,
you agree?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So then I'll move to adjourn to February 27.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
So your
Aye.
suggestions to move the garage forward?
My suggestion is I think it's very feasible for you to eliminate some of your requests without impacting the overall site plan, and architecture of the home. So let's get this up to 12.
Okay.
And let's see if we can do something here to eliminate the bay window.
I kind of hate to push toward the neighbor though, because I do have a foot and 6 inches that I can shift that way. That will make it conforming.
I know it is your right, though.
I know.
No, but I mean, joking aside,
I'm not joking,
there
yeah.
is a very clear path for you to
Okay.
avoid a request.
I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do that. Okay.
And you know what? I'm sorry, I prematurely closed this, but is there anyone
Yeah, I
in
think the neighbors are.
the neighbors now? You're the homeowners?
We are the neighbors.
Oh, you're the neighbors. Do you want to say anything about it? Okay, please do. Do I have to formally reopen, Brian?
I don't remember a vote.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you just take that one? Well, I come here, maybe I'll show something. All right, so for the record, my name is Chris Burgray. My wife Nadine Postmakers, we're the neighbors. We know the architect. She actually did work for us at the time. We haven't met the owners. We don't know who the owners are. We also don't know if this plan is really intended to be lived in. This is actually a house that is on Zillow actively, or that was up for sale. So we welcome neighbors. That's not the problem. We actually don't mind the house next to us and even the pool and the garage, because we have one. As you can see here, maybe I'll show this. Then you can see a visual. How do I do this?
Sage, can we get the camera on the table, please?
Then you can get an idea of what's there.
Okay.
Where did I move it? So, okay, there you can see. So what is being proposed currently the house that is there is a lady we used to know for many years, friend. She moved out to a senior home. It was a small bungalow.
Orient us, please. The house with the red
The
tab
house with
is
the red is
subject
the
property?
proposed new house.
Okay.
We are the owners of this part.
Okay.
So again, we don't mind if there's a sale, if new neighbors come in there, if they build a house, if there's a pool, if there's a garage. We understand that this may happen.
Mm-hmm.
No problem as such. What we respectfully ask the board is, if you approve the variance of the pool and the garage, we have as such no objection against that. It kind of makes sense. Right? What we're only asking is that if a house is built there, that is built with respect for the neighborhood and not close to us, but as I think the word that we were advised is centering, or that there's so much space, and if you're gonna give variances, let a house be built a bit more to the front. There's at least 10 feet to this side, so towards Old Town Road. So move things to the back, align with us, and ideally a bit more to Bellows Lane to allow for light. This design of this house, the way we understand it, is a copy of a house that the architect has made somewhere else, and currently is just plotted in there because it happens to fit, because it was not designed for this space. It was copied and pasted from another area. And it has, for example, big windows on the side which watch straight into our bathroom and bedroom and this on this side of the house, for example. So we say, if people want to come and live here, the current owners of this house, they're welcome. Build and design a house that fits the area, has respect for the neighborhood. You can have the pool, you can have the garage, we don't mind, but make one that allows us to keep our light, move a little bit further, move a little bit forward. That's all we ask. For
Okay.
reason.
So certainly sympathetic
Yeah.
to your feelings as the neighbor.
Yeah.
One of our most important mandates is to limit the number of
I
variances that
understand.
we grant. And so we look very closely at, are there feasible alternatives? And the fact that Sue does have room on your property line to move the house closer, you know, corner lots are tough. And
We know corner lots
they're
are
very,
tough, but
they're
you
very
see
restricted.
you see what's happening. There's so much space on the other
Mhm.
side.
I understand. Maybe there are considerations on that facade that could be made with respect to the window
Yeah,
orientation.
you
It
guys
means smaller windows that we could propose that, but the setback is 30 feet, there's really not much I can do. And I was trying, even for that little sliver, you can see that I don't even get that.
No, but what we're saying is you can move this a bit more
That-
to the
that
back
I
and a bit more to here. This can move to the back, and what we were respectively asking the zoning board, if you allow variances here, to allow this, to just allow this house to be repositioned a bit more to the front in its entirety.
So I think historically the board, you will find, is sympathetic on corner lots to accessory structures. Swimming pools, first and foremost, garages to a lesser extent, but it would probably be very unlikely for us to grant a variance for a home, for a primary structure, given that the primary structure is generally the first one built, and that there is so much envelope still to construct a home that is conforming. So while I understand what you're getting at, and I'm sympathetic to you as a neighbor, as I'm sure everyone here is, we do have a clear mandate to work with the applicant to eliminate variance requests and go do a little back and forth where possible. Do you want to
No,
add
absolutely
anything
right.
to that?
No.
If you disagree, please let us know. Carol?
And what about the design of the houses and the windows on the back and all that?
So the Architectural Review Board will see this house, and they will have comments on the architecture. That's not really our mandate. Okay? And when the time comes, they will definitely be sympathetic, and they're empowered to take your concerns more into consideration than we are.
Again, we don't mind having a house there.
Yeah.
What we want to preserve is light and privacy.
Right.
This is what the message is to you guys, and we know you're.
Yeah. I mean, I think your message is heard loud and clear. I think there's a month to work on the design, and perhaps you can engage in conversation with each other and find something, find a good compromise.
Okay. Assuming this house will be built, because we don't know.
Well, the homeowner, when they realized they couldn't build the swimming pool and the garage, they were quite devastated, and they were going to list the property for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for sale for a little bit. And then they found me and said, why don't we go for variance?
Yep.
So she did write a letter herself. So from how I work with her, I felt that she's going to live there. But I cannot promise that, because when there are a lot of people offer a lot of money for houses, who knows who's going to sell.
Well, it sounds like she works at the hospital,
She
so
does
it makes a
work
lot
in
of
the
sense for her to
hospital.
stay
That
there.
I know, but it very clearly, the broker approached us too, and he says, we want that plan to have a higher resale value.
Mm-hmm.
That was the intent. That's why we're saying, what is being asked here? Is a plan for higher resale or a plan to come and live? Again, we don't mind to have good neighbors in a good house. That's as such not at stake. We just want to ensure it's ideally the best possible one.
I
for
know.
both.
We have to avoid getting into the hypotheticals.
Sure.
I'm sure you understand.
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic, as I'm sure everyone here is. So let's see the next draft of this
Okay.
project.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
move the house, and then we'll reduce that little sliver, and we'll move the garage 2 feet forward to reduce the amount of variance requested.
Okay, and then, any conversations that your client can have with their neighbor
I will
are
talk to
always
them.
fruitful. Yeah.
With pleasure, Lucy.
Okay. So,
Thank you for listening.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so vote to
Was that
adjourn.
it for public comment?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I've been jumping the gun on that all night. Sage, anyone in the Zoom? Anyone else here? No? Okay. Move to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we are now, where are we? We're at case 3193880 Meadow Lane. Hey, Gary, is that you?
Yes. it
Hey,
is.
man, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Seen you in years.
Site plan, so we can get an idea of location of this.
So while we get set up here, I just want to remind the board, there's a special section of the code that addresses waterfront lots that applies here, so I made copies of that, which spells out some special considerations for granting variances in scenarios such as these.
Let's lead with that.
Okay, I can, let me pull that up if I can.
That's where I was gonna lead with.
Oh, I can, happy to turn it over to the applicant. But that's section 11628G, which gives the board some special criteria under specific types of variances. And so that is with respect to waterfront lots, the board can grant in appropriate cases where the premises is bounded by the Atlantic Ocean, like it is here, to allow for the erection of an accessory building nearer to the front line of the main building, subject to other provisions of the code. In this case, it says such accessory building shall be set back from the street line at least 100 feet and conform to the other requirements, that it shall not exceed 1 story in height above ground level and not exceed 16 feet in height above average grade, that it shall not exceed 1,200 square feet or 75% of the area of the main building, whichever is less, that it should not be used for residential purposes, and were necessary for the protection of the district and the character of the other properties. The Board of Appeals can impose appropriate restrictions, conditions, and safeguards, including to, but not limited to, architecture and design with reference to surrounding properties, screening where deemed necessary by planting and shrubbery and trees and other barriers from adjoining properties, and protection against the use or manner of obnoxious or detrimental to others or consistent with the spirit and purpose of this chapter. So some just other considerations there with specific to waterfront properties.
Okay. Essentially reaffirming the street side as a backyard. Okay. Take it away.
Gary Sanders, WA Slide Architect, with the architects for the applicant. What we have here is a house that was built in 1992. The current owners built the original house, still own the house, and have developed the property moving forward with the codes that were in place at the time. So, as Luke was saying, the front yard was originally the backyard, and vice versa, until the code changed about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So the main house is right up to the line on the dune, and we have an existing tennis pavilion that is used for recreation. So the gym, it's used for lounging, relaxing, and the client would like to add a bathroom and a changing room to the existing pavilion. So under that code 11628G, there's certain things that say they would like it 100 feet back from the street. We are 117 feet back to the first new addition, and then we are 147 feet back from to the second addition. So this would be flanking the sides. I don't know if the board has had time to see the property in person, but this is
Was closed.
Yeah,
and locked.
it was locked.
Mm.
Okay. You can't even see this from the property. It's 5 feet into the ground to the pool, and as you come up to the driveway, I don't know if you saw the pictures, but there are an alley of trees on both sides of this, and if you look down, second row down, the third picture from the right, you can even see the main pool house, which is 16 feet tall. The new addition, I believe, is 12 from where it is, and only 7 feet above that existing retaining wall. The property is very hedged, very landscaped from the road, and it's just something that the client would like to add a little bit of more use to that building.
Is this one of those tennis courts that's below grade?
It is sunk in, so it's actually
It's probably
twice.
6 feet to 5 feet down.
It's 5 feet down, but it's 5 feet down from the tennis pavilion. The tennis pavilion is 5 feet down from grade on the back side. So it's really, the tennis court's like 10 feet down from the east grade, east side of the grade. So as you see, the second down picture, you only see the very top of the roof of the tennis pavilion. You don't see any of the walls. They have wisteria growing over it. And that's on purpose. They really don't want to see it either. So the only opportunity you get to see the tennis pavilion is from the west side. Where we are 118 feet back from the side yard, where 35 would be on the west side, and we're 124 feet back from the east side. Clients also own the property to the east, so the only neighbor they have is to the west.
Oh, they own lot 2?
The lot to the east.
Yep.
There's no neighbors across the street. It's a direct view to the bay.
It's across the street from One Point.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So up until a year and a half ago, we wouldn't need a variance, and now that they want to add something, we're way under on lot coverage. GFA, we could add another 3,000 square feet to the house.
You need a variance because this is now front yard.
It's now considered front yard.
Carol, what I'm looking at is very helpful. It's just a satellite, image. You can get a sense of the vegetation.
I mean, it's very well hidden.
Wow.
So there's the tennis pavilion in question. So when you think about.
So as you can see, from the side elevation, you can really see how small these little additions are compared to the existing building.
Does anyone have questions?
Beautiful landscape.
Yeah, it's nice, right?
It's beautiful.
Carol, what are your thoughts?
Downside is in the front yard, but it has to be because it's on the water. I get that. Very minimal changes. Not going to hurt the neighborhood. I don't think it's going to be deleterious to the neighbors because they can't see it, and it's pretty darn close to being compliant. So I'm not as concerned about it.
Tom?
I agree.
Linda, you're with Tom and
And it's
Carol?
a tiny area.
And Joyce?
It's total 150 square feet.
Okay. So I'll move to do a short form approval.
The owners would be very happy. They want to be in by
All
Memorial
right,
Day.
get those bids going.
Yeah.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That was quick.
Good to see you both.
Yeah, you too.
Oh, where
Good
you
to see you up at
Thanks, man.
the podium.
Oh, one of those days.
Alex, I did see the Lake Agawam annual report.
Yes, so there were 2 items of correspondence that were required reporting for previously approved cases.
Okay.
So those were both distributed to the board. That's there for your reference. If there's any type of follow-up, something that you
That's
wanted to
everything,
ask
right?
Lisa about, we could follow up on those. But that was where the board approved something and they were required to submit an annual
Follow-ups.
Yeah,
Okay.
letting you know the status of plantings and things like that.
Okay, so that's everyone's homework assignment is to read the 2 reports that were supplemental. They were, like Alex said, conditions of previous approvals. One's going to be a report from Jim Walker, who we heard from tonight, saying that.
This is dock approvals.
No. The Squabble Properties was an application from several years ago. As a condition of their approval, they have to submit annual reports that reports on the health, right, of the wetlands. So,
So do we have that?
we have it in our Dropbox now. Alex has it in there,
And hard copies were distributed as well.
and hard copies.
So it's in this pile of stuff that I
Yes.
have?
Yep. So take the time to read it this month.
Okay.
Both reports. One's on the Squabble,
Is there Squabble and what's the other one?
Lake Agawam. Take the time to read it this month, and then if you have any questions, we can. If they have questions, can we send them to you, Alex, in the interim,
Absolutely.
and then discuss?
I can make the application available if that's something that you need, and we can also refer those to the board's wetlands consultant if you have
Okay.
any technical questions.
Okay, super. Brian, do we have anything else to discuss?
Nothing. No, we're good.
Before we adjourn, I was just going to ask the board to look at the draft 2025 calendar. I believe the only meeting we currently have scheduled is the next one on February 27th.
Yeah.
Because we have deadlines that come up about a month before those, it would be helpful if we knew the dates for March.
All right, let's do that.
Can we schedule them like the other boards, throughout the year, tentatively at least, because then we can arrange vacations and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I believe we distributed suggested dates for the remainder of the year. Hopefully, we did that.
Hard copy or in our inboxes on the email system?
I believe it was done by hard copy, but let me see if I can pull it up here. I think it's online as well.
so it's also in our email. I didn't get the hard copy that I picked up on Friday at 11 o'clock, so that's fine. Is it on the email, or can you email it to me?
If you're able to go to the Dropbox, it looks like it was uploaded in the middle of November. So I think what, I think what we had staff do was just list the first Tuesday and fourth Thursday, which traditionally have been the board's meeting dates, and noted any cases where we would have back-to-back meetings during a month, which is something that the board typically has avoided, and cases where the meetings would conflict with federal holidays, which I think was just the case for the second November meeting would be on Thanksgiving.
Okay, great. So then, I think everyone is good for next February, except for you, Tom.
The February meeting, I have to take it online,
Yes.
because I'm in a meeting in New York. But I can,
When is the February meeting, the 27th?
27th, Thursday the 27th.
I can do like 6 to probably 7:30
Okay.
on Zoom.
Okay. Okay. That's better than nothing.
That's 90 minutes, that should get a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then so we'll agree that everyone's gonna review the schedule proposal that Alex prepared, and we will try to memorialize at least 4 months in advance if we can.
Well, we've got February.
In the
right?
meantime,
So
are
we'll
we able
just-
to set March at this meeting so we can plan the deadlines accordingly?
Okay, that sounds good.
The two dates that we had suggested were the second Tuesday falls on Tuesday, March 11th, and the Thursday falls on Thursday, March 27th.
So February 27th.
So February 27th, right?
Mhm.
Yep,
Okay.
that's the next
So
scheduled
then
date.
it's March 11th or March 27th.
Yes.
Both,
Both.
ideally.
And the 11th is only 12 days
I
after the previous meeting.
Right.
I can't do the 11th. I'm
I can't,
out of the country.
27th, I'm going to be in Greece. So 6 p.m. here is like
Pretty
1
late
a.m.
there. You can party all night and then come do our meeting.
Yeah, but dude, I'm there for rock climbing.
So
Okay.
is that a yes or a no to March 27th?
I can't do the 27th, but I can totally do the 11th.
Thanks.
I could do the 11th by Zoom. I'm in the Bahamas.
Yeah, I don't know yet.
Do we
I
have
can
to
do
have
it.
this conversation on, like, YouTube? Or can we close the meeting?
I think
I
we
think you
have
could-
to, because we're not allowed
Is-
to talk to each other unless.
I'll defer to council.
Brian, are
This
we
is
allowed to?
scheduling.
It's scheduling I'm not worried about. You can do any way you want.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's let them
As
go
long as we
home.
publish it, we're fine.
Okay,
Okay.
so should we let them go home?
Sure,
Yes, I think
yes.
so.
All right, so I'm gonna move to close tonight's hearing.
Second.
Aye.
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Yay.
Are we
Thank
able
you.
to keep Carol on for?
Do you want to
Assessor
do
Carol?
April while you got us?
Carol, I'm gonna